Or wait, oh, sure, because that's what I would need to do. I would need to do I know how to fix this. Oop, I'm, uh, um, wait, Molly, do you wanna join up perhaps? Um, okay. Oop, hello? Yeah, I can hear you. So then the interesting question is gonna be whether or not, like, the YouTube audience can hear you. Can you say, like, some more words? Mhm. Um, let's see. Yeah, oh, sure, okay. Yeah, the YouTube audience can't hear you. So what I probably need to do then is, um I think that's, like, easy to solve, though. Uh, okay, um so, like, the new scene, I probably wanna do something like this, but then I don't want this to ever get shown. Instead, I just want, like, the audio from it. Or I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Okay, so how do I oh, no, where's the other one? Okay, sure. Uh, can you bring back, like, the other one just to make sure that it's where I'm sorry, for those of you who are just joining us, I'm trying to get this working currently. Okay, wait, Molly, say some words. Hmm, okay. How would I need to, uh, um, okay, wait, and then just to verify. Hmm, damn it. Um, this should be trivial, I fear. Yeah, uh, that's what I'm trying to do, although I'm not sure how to. Oh, for which one? Okay, wait, so add scene, add media, and then I wanna do, like, a screen? So I have video, uh okay. Okay, sure, share screen. Oh, yeah, okay, perfect. No, that's perfect. Okay. Is this... Wait, say some more words?
I'm saying some words now.
Okay, let's see.
I can hear myself.
Okay, sure. Share screen. Oh, yeah, okay, perfect. No, that's perfect. Okay. Is this... Wait, say some more words?
I'm saying some words now.
Okay, let's see.
I can hear myself.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think it's working now. Although... So now it's just a matter of doing this? Okay. Wait, say some more words now, just to make sure that's still
I'm
working.
saying some words now.
Okay.
It's definitely working. You don't have to play it back.
Okay. Sure. All right, that's perfect. Okay. I guess we'll just have to sort out like whatever audio issues may or may not arise. But regardless, are we ready?
I think we are ready.
Okay. Is it quiet?
It's okay for me. I don't know how it's going to come across on those, but it sounds really good on my headphones.
Okay. Not a rush. Sure, totally fine. All right. Yep. Let's get into it then. Thanks so much for coming on up and helping with me with this, Molly.
Of course.
All right. Russell, I know you said that you have an argument. You're like, welcome to come on up and present your argument. You're just not in the guest request box, though. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. Sorry for the delayed introduction there. I was getting this set up. I'm trying out like a new streaming software, and there's like a lot of stuff going on. But if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. As we go, let me get my gosh darn stuff set up. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's pretty good, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, what do you got?
Yeah. So I've really been really interested in epistemology and knowledge and all this stuff, right? Because I'm a big fan of tag. But I think tag is only effective if you run it correctly.
Okay.
So I have a simple argument. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, P1, knowledge requires justification.
Okay.
P2, the justification provided needs to overcome Agrippa's trilemma.
Okay.
If the justification does not overcome Agrippa's trilemma, then knowledge claim is null. That's a conclusion.
Does not overcome Agrippa's trilemma, then the knowledge claim is null. Okay.
Yeah, so engage with this. It's just a very simple, straightforward.
Sure. Wait. So the conclusion is, what's the conclusion supposed to be here? Also,
yeah,
wait, do you by any chance have like headphones I can like hear myself?
Man, I don't. Do you want me to just? I'm gonna take a lunch like in an hour. I can just come back. I apologize.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do. Let's finish this at like sometime soon.
Okay. All right. Let's do that then. Okay. I'll request another day. Thanks.
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah. Things coming up. Hey, if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. I suppose this is what I probably need to do as well. I need to, are the streams all getting shared out? No, let me do that. Boop boop boop. Ba-doop boop boop ba-doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Okay, yeah, sent out, yeah. To the Discord, which you should all be a part of. It's discord.gg/allegedlyin. I'd love to see you there. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Doing well. How old are you?
22.
Yep. What religion?
Christian.
Okay. What makes you think God exists?
I just believe there's some abstract concepts that a naturalistic point of view of how we came to be don't account for.
Why?
For example, beauty. It doesn't follow that a species following an evolutionary mechanism got to develop a concept like that. That we're maximizing for survival and flourishing.
So I think that it does, right? One of the things that's present in beauty specifically is pattern identification. And there's a reward circuit in our brain for pattern identification. It gets us like a huge hit of dopamine. I think that we can pretty easily, with neuroscience and evolution, account for things like why we appreciate beauty. Additionally, beauty is like extremely subjective.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of beautiful things are very deceptive to humans as a species. Wouldn't you agree?
It's very deceptive.
And again,
or like, wait, what was the word you said?
Like, sorry, like, yeah, like they trick our minds most of the time.
I don't really know what that means.
Yeah, like a lot of beautiful stuff. For example, like animals that have beautiful patterns usually are very toxic. So again, even under that, I would say that it's not great for survival and development.
But specifically what we're responding to there is like the colors and like the patterns. Typically what's indicated isn't like, I want to go, those are cool colors on that snake over there, I want to go like grab it. I think that you can both like aesthetically appreciate something and then also not feel compelled to go and like touch it or whatever. But
No,
I
yeah,
mean, I think like
I agree.
I think like probably like the problem that still remains unresolved though is that beauty is extremely subjective. It seems like we could definitely account for how things like beauty came to be.
Well, I think beauty is very intuitive, though. I feel like most people have the same sense of what is beautiful. Obviously, it might vary somewhat, but if we show the general population, like a wide, if we show them a picture of the Himalayas, like a nature photo, they would probably be like, that's beautiful. They would evoke like emotion. I don't think that's due to the conditioning or environment.
Okay, well, I hate spending time at the art museum. I think most paintings suck and are boring. There's like very few paintings that I would actually like enjoy looking at. But of course, like all these paintings in the art museum are masterpieces. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So, like whatever people are intuiting when they look at paintings like that, I don't intuit. So
Okay, I see what you're saying, but so sorry, maybe I misheard. What do you account to beauty then, to like that concept?
I think I've already explained this. I think that it's
Yeah,
something
you
about
have.
like pattern recognition across like various dimensions, like form, balance, etc.
Form balance. Well, what do
Yeah,
you mean?
these are like various things that you might appreciate, and like something that's beautiful, you might appreciate like it's like artistic form, like the balance of it. I don't know, like the sort of like message that it's sending.
Yeah, but sorry, but on an evolutionary, like, standpoint, how is it like?
I've already
You know,
explained this. It's because
No, yeah,
pattern
fine.
recognition is something that's very enjoyable for our brains. It gives us like a huge spike of dopamine.
Oh, like symmetry, stuff like that. Like,
Yeah. Also, my understanding is that more symmetrical faces actually do have better genes.
yeah, okay, yeah. That's very solid. That was really my only argument. I just wanted to see what you would say to that.
Sure.
But I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming up. Appreciate you. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. I don't know. I have no idea if we have super chats yet. We very well might not, but I don't know. I don't know how super chats are gonna work. If we have those. Did the audio go okay on YouTube just now? I just want to make sure. Okay. Well, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. And with that, we'll go to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Yep.
What's up, Ian?
Hey, how old are you?
19.
Yep. And what religion?
Greek Orthodox.
Okay. What makes you think God exists?
Change exists.
Okay. Change
Yeah,
exists.
All right. So I'll just give you the argument, right?
Please.
It's kind of long. So premise 1 would be change is a real feature of the world.
Okay. And by
then
change, you mean
premise
what?
2, by change, I mean the actualization of potential.
I'd probably reject this. I think that I hold to eternalism, so I think all is actual. I don't think that there's like genuine coming into existence, but rather I just think that there are different things that exist at different time slices.
And what would be your justification for that worldview?
Yeah, so it would be things like the relativity of simultaneity present in general relativity, the fact that things traveling at two different speeds experience different amounts of time means that there can't possibly be just one present moment. So how would you account for that if all that exists is like a present moment?
I wouldn't say that there is just one present moment.
Okay, so then you would then agree that there's like multiple different present moments and that there must be like multiple moments that are actualized at the same time.
No, how does that entail from what we've already said?
Because you say that you believe in a plurality of present moments. That means that I could have sworn you just said that. So how would you account for something like the relativity of simultaneity if all that exists is the present?
I never said that all exists is the present.
Then you're not a presentist. So then you believe in eternalism.
I never said I was a presentist.
Okay, cool. I mean, you asked me for the justification for eternalism, so it sounds like you're just asking me for the justification for the position that you yourself agree with.
I never said I agreed with your position. What are you talking about?
So you are an eternalist, or what are you?
I don't know what eternalism or presentism means. I don't think I need to know what those means in order to present my argument.
Yeah, sure. But in order to understand the response, you're probably going to. So I'm happy to give you the rundown. Presentism is the view that only the present is actual, that the past is no longer actual, that the future is not yet actual. Eternalism is the view that past, present, and future are all actual.
Okay. So I guess I would probably say I would go with another option, which is like a growing block theory of the universe. So like the past has already been actualized, the present is being actualized, but the future hasn't been actualized yet.
Okay, and what would be like a justification for that view?
Due to the fact that change exists, and what change is based on our empirical observation is the actualization of potential. And I can give you a justification for this if you like.
So I have premise 1, change exists. Premise 2, change is the actualization of a potential. And then the conclusion, therefore, the past and present are actual, but the future is not actual. You think that follows?
Nope, never said that.
Okay,
Premise
so
3
what would be
be
your... Yeah,
the
go for it.
actualization of potential is a real feature of the world. That would be the next premise.
Okay, sure. Actualization of potential
Is a real feature of the
is a
world.
real feature. Okay, yep.
Mhm.
And then what?
All right. And then premise 4 would be no potential can be actualized unless something already actualizes it.
No
Basically, the
potential
principle of causality.
can be actualized without something actual to actualize it. Okay. Premise
Yep.
5.
So any change is caused by something already actual.
Change is caused by something actual. Okay.
All right. And premise 6. So that would actually, premise 5 would actually kind of be conclusion 1, actually. Premise 6
For the
kind of doesn't
conclusion,
really-
to be clear, is that the growing block universe is true.
Nope. It's not.
Oh,
We haven't reached
that's
the final
the
conclusion.
That's the thing I'm asking you for an argument for. This might just be a tracking failure on your part. So what's the
Well, I
argument
don't
that the
need-
growing block universe is true?
Yeah, I don't need a justification for the growing block universe in order to
Okay.
present the argument. So can I just present premise 6?
Well,
now?
okay, wait. What would be your defeater then for eternalism?
I don't have a defeater for eternalism at this moment. I don't need one in order to present
Okay.
the argument. I think
Well-
you're just bringing up random points so that you don't want me to continue with the argument.
That's an excellent piece of psychoanalysis, but unfortunately, no. This is like a really robust critique of Aquinas's first way, namely that it presupposes the falsity of eternalism. Eternalism is an impossibility under this model of change, so you need to provide some sort of justification for thinking that eternalism is necessarily false.
Yeah, this isn't Aquinas's first way. This
It
is
absolutely
Aristotle's
is.
first mover. This is
Okay.
Aristotle's first mover.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, premise 6,
It's
right?
the same argument. I don't know if you're
to-
aware of that.
Well, no, Thomas Aquinas articulates it differently. This is
Sure.
a
What's the
different argument.
difference between the two articulations?
Thomas Aquinas has longer version of it.
Okay.
Actually, no,
yeah.
he has a shorter version of it. I'm sorry. It's a shorter version.
You know, he
This is a
doesn't
longer
actually give like direct premises. Neither Aristotle nor Aquinas give like premise 1, premise 2 type deal. So what's the
Okay.
difference in their articulation of the argument?
You're just bringing up random
Okay.
questions so that I can't go
Yeah,
forward with the argument.
Yeah,
Can
you're
we
like a
just proceed with the
pseudo-intellectual.
argument?
You're LARPing. Okay.
Wait, I'm not.
I'm just going to ask you the exact question that I've already asked you, which is like,
I'm just,
why would I think that eternalism is false? The argument presupposes that eternalism is false.
I didn't argue that eternalism is false. Can you object to any of the premises that I listed?
Yeah,
so
the
far?
premise that I object to is that change is the actualization of a potential. Premise 2.
All right.
I want the
All right, so what's the
justification for that.
justification?
Wait, sorry,
All
what's
right,
your
so when-
justification for premise 2? You're the one giving the argument.
All right. So when we look at the world, we see that things have certain potentials to be a certain way. Like, for example, I have the potential to reach my arm across the table and pick up this coaster, for example. And when that potential is actualized is when my hand picks up the coaster and lifts it off the desk. So that would just be an empirical example of the actualization of potential.
Okay, I understand that that's your conclusion, that you're saying like change is the actualization of a potential. Okay, why would I think that eternalism is false?
I never argued that eternalism
If
is false. Why do
eternalism
you
is
keep going
true,
back to
then
this
change
point?
is not the actualization of a potential. Let me break that down for you. If
Yeah, go
eternalism
ahead.
is true, that is to say, past, present, and future are all actual, then it follows from that that there is no temporal change because there never is the actualization of potential times. But temporal change does exist. There are different times, which means that necessarily change cannot be the actualization of a potential.
So why do you presuppose that the actualization of potential needs to be actualized by a prior moment?
Wait, sorry, what's your question? What are you asking?
Why do you presuppose that in order for a potential to be actualized, that I need to hold to presentism?
Yeah, because otherwise you run into the problem that there is temporal change, but there is no actualization of a potential, but change is the actualization of a potential.
Wait, but I just said I don't have to hold the temporal change. So why do you keep bringing that
so
up?
wait, then you deny that like there are different times at different times?
I didn't deny that. I
Do
said
you
I
think
don't
the
need to
time
hold
is
to
like-
that position.
Is time
You
always
keep trying
the
to get
same?
me to say that I hold to a certain
Okay.
position when I don't have to.
Do you think that like every time is the same? Oh no, not the
Oh my
fake
gosh.
Joker laugh. There's
Oh
no
my
way that
gosh,
you
this
think
is
that this is
embarrassing.
like a good rhetorical look for you. You're taking quite the bold
You
rhetorical
keep trying to
strategy.
get me to submit to a position that has nothing to do with the argument.
It's
You
directly relevant,
presuppose
and
that I
I've already
need to hold
explained
to
it.
presentism in order to
You
suppose
do.
that the actualization of potential is a real feature of the world. That's a
Yeah,
complete
that's. I mean,
blunder.
yeah, that is correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
for the reasons
exactly.
that
You're
I've already listed
presupposing
out
that I
to
have to
you.
hold that. That's a
Well,
blunder.
because what
What's
you're
the
doing right now
justification
is
for that?
denying the existence of temporal change.
No, I
So you
didn't.
don't think the
When?
time that it is changes?
What?
Do you think
What
the
are you
time that it
talking
is
about?
changes?
Do I think the time that it is changes? What kind of question is that?
Do you think the time that it is changes?
Does that question make sense?
Yes.
Does that
Do you
question
think the time that it is changes? It's
what do you mean by the time
gosh, you
that
know,
it
it
is?
always takes some time to get the question into ChatGPT. You know, you're
No,
probably
what do you
confused
mean
as to
by the
what to
time?
ask
What do you
about
mean by
this.
the time that
What do
it
you
is?
mean by the time? What do you mean by change? Like, do you think the time that it is changes?
Okay.
Come on.
There's no need to get defensive here, right? I'm just asking you
Do you
to
think that
clarify what you
between the
mean
two
by
of
the
us, I'm
time
the
that
one
it
that
is.
sounds defensive? You
Wait,
sound like super
wait.
insecure right now. Like,
Okay,
seriously,
okay,
calm down and
Ian, let's
answer the
just calm down for a
question.
second.
Does the time that it is change?
What do you mean by the time that it is?
You don't know what it means to when somebody asks you on the street, like,
Yep.
what's the time? You don't know what that means?
Yep. Yeah, what did you mean by the time that it is?
You don't know what it means when somebody asks you
Can you
what time
answer
is
the
it?
question
You have
instead
no
of
clue
asking
what that's
another
referring
question?
to?
Wait,
Do
Ian,
you
I'm
think
not trying to be
that
disrespectful
do you
here at
think
all.
that a
But can
single
you just
person
simply
is going
answer
to
the
think that
question
you're
instead
doing
of
anything
asking
other
another
than
question
lying?
afterwards?
Like, I understand you got trapped, you got caught. This argument's too good for you to
Oh my
deal with.
gosh.
I'm
He's coping
sorry,
right now,
right? The
guys.
debate probably
This is
didn't go
amazing.
as you thought that it was
How
going
many
to
people are
do.
watching?
What you should
375
do
viewers?
is calm
This is
down, take a
amazing.
deep breath, and
This
just
is
answer the
amazing,
question.
embarrassing.
It's like a really easy question. Do you think that the time that it is changes?
Wait, what do you mean by the time that it is?
So at specific slices in space-time, there are discrete times whereby objects that are the same object will have different contradictory properties. So we denote these by things like, I don't know, 12 o'clock, 1, 1:30, and on like specific dates too, 1:30, you know, 6
Mhm.
4 2026. So do you think that the time
Okay,
that it
so
is changes?
so you gave me a definition of what time is, but what do you mean by the time that it is changes?
Yeah, there's like
Because
a
you gave an example of like different stamps of
okay.
time, right?
Listen,
But
buddy,
you
if you're
haven't
gonna
presupposed that
if
I
your
think that
debate
time
strategy
changes.
relies on you pretending like you don't know what the word or what the phrase "the time that it is" means, then I'm
Oh my
simply going to
gosh.
keep on
Dude,
asking you the question
you
and
literally
pointing out
just
to you that
defined
this is
two views of time, which
extraordinarily
is
bad
eternalism
faith,
and
and that
presentism, and
every
you're
single
acting like
person
I'm
who
bad
watches
faith for
this
asking
live
you what
is
version
going
of
to think
time
that
that
you're
you
being
mean.
horrendous faith when you say you don't know what it means to ask like what the time is.
Wait, but Ian, with all due
Nobody's ever
respect, you
asked you
just
like
wanted.
what the time
Okay,
is.
can I speak? Wait, can I
Do you want
speak?
to answer the question?
Yeah,
What
because
time is
I
it
find
right
it
now? Do you know?
I find it laughable that you went into detail explaining two views of time, and you act like I'm bad faith when I ask you what you mean by time. Like, what the
You
fuck
didn't
kind
ask
of
me what I meant by
dumbass
time.
argument
You
is
asked me what
that?
I meant by the time that it is. These are two different
Yeah.
questions. Yeah, I take time
Okay,
to be
so
something like the dimension along which change is possible.
okay, wait, Ian, I'm being so honest right now. I actually have to go to work,
Okay.
but I'm being so honest right now. I'll come back on you and I'll talk about this with you another time.
For sure,
But
for sure.
yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of argument or evidence for God's existence. That's a funny question. How does he know it's time for work? Sorry, yeah, is the current time the ending time of your shift? All right, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all the good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. Okay, wait, how do I do this? Am I capable of like displaying them? Okay, sure, yeah. Am I able to like, okay. Dr. Fudge, thanks so much for the super chat. No, you don't have super chats. Okay, good to know. How do I hide this then? Okay, sure, that's chill. I wonder, is that how they come in? They just like stack up there? I don't know, it's pretty cool. You starred them. Chat thing. Maybe I'm a silly goose. Where the heck? Where's this like elusive chat thing that you're talking about? I'm sorry, this must be a confusing conversation to listen to. Right sidebar. Am I stupid? Oh, yeah, I am stupid. Yeah, indeed. Okay. Oh, this is perfect. Actually, Aquinas' first way works for eternalism as well. I actually just did a video today on infinite regress as understood by Aquinas. No free clout. No free clout. Although, okay, the reason why I suspect that isn't true, I just don't see how you would get around the problem that the time that it is changes. That there's like a now that's relative to each time slice, and each time slice has like a different now. All right, with that, we will go to the very next guest. Whoa. Misa, thanks so much for the super chat. How do you know that God doesn't exist? Because fuck, what's the argument even? Yeah, okay. Change always existed. If change exists, then time exists. Therefore, time always existed. But if time always exists, then God can't create it. And if God can't create it, then he's not the creator of all things other than himself. But God, of course, is the creator of all things other than himself. All right, let's go to the very next guest. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. Hey, how's it going, G Productions?
Hello, how are you doing?
Doing well. How about you? How old are you?
I'm 40.
Can you speak up a bit? You're a bit quiet.
I'm sorry. I don't have an actual headphone or anything with it. Yeah, I'm 40 years old.
Okay. And what religion are you?
Christian.
What makes you think God exists?
Well, the thing about it, I've been watching you off and on from, for the last year, and your intellectualism is really, it's actually amazing. I have to give you that. You're a smart guy. You have a lot of good ideas, and you basically what I've been noticing, what I've observed is that we're trying to find out who God is or if he exists, based on proof, like based on scientific proofs, and
I don't think I'd say that.
Okay.
So
what would you say?
Yeah, the way I'd characterize it is that we're trying to determine if God exists based on proofs and evidence. Now, if you want to provide scientific evidence, that's totally fine, but that is not your only option. You could provide philosophical evidence. You could provide, historical evidence. You could provide like some sort of like deductive proof of it. Any of that's totally fine. I'm not locking you in to give me the scientific proof of God.
I just wanted to know the parameters of the argument or the platform. Also, what about personal experience?
So there's like reasons why I probably don't take personal experience particularly seriously. But I mean, it's going to depend on like the personal experience. Typically, there's either going to be a naturalistic explanation for it, or I just have like good reason to think that this sort of thing doesn't happen, and like the claim is always under evidenced.
Because just so you know beforehand, that's what mine is. My argument would be a personal experience that I've had in my life. It's because it's relative to each person. We're talking about a natural laws with a supernatural God. So there is no time with God, you know. And without getting into all that, I just want you to be aware that if we talk about this, it's going to be personal experience. So if that's not the argument platform, then we probably shouldn't discuss
So,
this.
probably what I'll do, because, you know, I'm trying to, I probably do want to circumvent this discussion. Okay. Do you think the only way to come to God is through personal experience?
Yes.
Okay. Then why wouldn't God give a personal experience to everybody? If the one and only way for us to believe in God is to give us this, and God wants everybody to believe in him, then he has a reason to give everybody a personal experience that's in line with his goals.
Right, I understand that. That's getting into a big, two different schools of thought in the Christian realm of predestination and free will. But
Wait, sorry.
you know
It's
what I
not.
mean?
It's not even like God wants like a relationship. It's not like God is like willing for everybody to have a relationship with him. I can't make a free choice to form a relationship with God if I don't even know that he exists.
Right, which is relative to each person's experience. Like to go back to my personal experience, I have a reason to because of my personal experience, and you might not have had that, which is totally fine. But just from my personal experience, that's why I believe in God. It's a faith. It's by faith you are saved. You know, I'm sure you've heard that before. Um, but that's basically what it is for me. It's by faith, and there's no other way I can actually. You're right. I can't prove it. You're absolutely right.
I don't think I
Cannot be
mean,
proven.
I don't think I said that. But
Well,
I
you
mean,
actually didn't today, no. But
okay. So in terms
um,
of why wouldn't God just give everyone a personal experience?
you know what? I don't know.
Okay.
And no, and I'm not afraid to just admit that. I do not have the answer to that question.
Okay. I mean, I take that to be good evidence against God's existence, because you would expect everybody would get a personal experience. That's the one and only way you could
Like,
ever
why would
even
he?
have the belief that God exists.
Well,
God
why
wants
would he
us to
pick
have.
him?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Why would he? I agree with that part. But why would he have some people go to hell and some people not? A loving God, right?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't
Is that
understand
what
that
you're saying?
either. In fact, I think that
Right.
that's like a catastrophic problem for the religion.
Right, and that's something that I struggled with for a long time. But I realized that God is omniscient and He's all powerful, and you know, people make choices out here when they get to Earth, and whether they're good or bad depends that. You know what I mean?
Sure. Do you think that hell is like eternal torment forever? It's like eternal suffering?
Um, all I can do is tell you what it says in the Bible. I don't
Mhm.
know by my own opinion, but it's the absence of God is what it
Mhm.
is. It's not maybe not burning stuff like that, but it's the absence of God's existence in a realm.
Is it like eternal
Basically, what it is.
suffering, though, is kind of my question.
Um, I think there's levels of it. I mean, basically, it's eternal suffering. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Do you think that a just punishment fits the crime?
Right. I understand. Okay. So this is my opinion, like with that. Somebody that just doesn't, if our religion is basically Jesus died on the cross, okay, he died for our sins, and then if you accept him, then you go to heaven, okay? Short, simple term right there. But it's not anything you do on earth that takes you in hell, puts you in hell. It's whether if you smoke cigarettes, you're not going to go to hell, it's just going to put you to heaven faster if you believe in God, right? So it's the fact that we denied or rejected Jesus at one point, that we that we would go to hell for. If we, you know, God gave a gift of His Son, and then He died on a cross. I'm saying this, you know,
What do you think?
theoretically
What
for on your
question do you
end.
think I asked you?
I'm going to go backtrack then.
Yeah, it's a yes or no question. Do you think a just punishment fits the crime? In order for a punishment to be just, do you think it needs to be fitting to the crime?
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree that all the crimes we could possibly commit on this earth are finite?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think infinite punishment fits finite crimes?
Well, no, it doesn't. But
Okay, we have a
I think that
contradiction.
It doesn't. It doesn't. You're right. But finite argument isn't that, or not argument. The finite belief is that we're rejecting his son, and if you had a son and you put him to die in a horrible, horrific way, and people rejected that, you'd be pretty upset about it. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
that's my. It's not. It's something that can be proven. I totally understand your platform here, where how you do it. It's because I listen to it. I'm amazed sometimes because it's like you really can't prove it that he's not. That
wait,
he's real.
Wait, sorry.
You can't
Before we
prove
move
that
on to
God's real.
something else, let's just stick with what we were currently talking about. Okay, so you're telling me that from what you've told me so far, it would follow that God is not giving a just punishment, that hell is an unjust punishment, because hell is an infinite punishment, but all the crimes you could possibly commit are finite.
Right.
So hell is an infinite punishment for finite crimes, but we've agreed that infinite punishment doesn't fit finite crimes.
But
So
the finite crimes that we would commit here on Earth are not the reasons would be going to hell anyway.
what would be the
Sometimes.
reasons that we're going to hell if it's not the things that we
Rejection
do? Like that makes it like way worse. If the thing we're being punished
Rejection of
for
Jesus.
is not, so it's not our actions, we're not getting punished for our actions?
No, it's the rejection of Jesus Christ.
And is that an action?
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, then I guess we are in that action. so to
Yeah,
speak.
sure. Okay. Is that like an infinitely harmful action?
To God it is.
Okay, so you infinitely harm God? I'm
Um,
capable of harming God?
You're capable of rejecting something.
But am I
that you
capable of
give-
harming him is my
Well, it's a
question.
free gift. It's a free gift. Like, and I like I said before from the beginning of this, it's like it's not an intellectual. It's a personal relationship with him. And I understand on your point of view, your intelligence. I respect that, and you're a lot more learned in different philosophies than I am. So I'm coming on here knowing that, and just telling you my personal experience.
Okay. Well, listen, I don't know, like do you want to engage in the discussion about hell or do you not?
Well, I believe hell's a place, a real place that.
So
go
that was
through.
another yes or no question, by the way.
Okay, ask it one more time, sir.
Do you want to engage in the discussion about hell or do you not want to?
Sure.
Okay, sure. So then I need help like reconciling this. You said all the crimes you could possibly commit on this earth are finite. So the crime of rejecting God is finite, but you're getting infinite punishment for it. That's unjust.
Well, then I guess I would have to retract my statement about finite punishment on one case, and that's the one of rejection of Jesus.
So you'd be saying, are you saying that infinite punishment can fit finite crimes?
Well, if we're dealing with our time and our way of thinking, you understand? But if we're dealing with a supernatural point of looking at things where there's no time, like when you asked the other gentleman on the like, what time is it? I mean, I got it right away. Jesus wasn't paying attention. Like, like yeah, it's 3:00. But it's something that we're dealing with a God that have no time. He has no time. He has no. There is no time within his. He doesn't change at all, but there is no time within his realm.
Okay, I guess how do you think that changes any of what's being discussed?
Well, you were talking about how time changes.
This is like a completely separate topic. The topic, like, let's just stick with hell right now.
Okay.
In terms of hell, do you think that an infinite punishment given to a finite crime is just? Like, you don't think that the punishment needs to be proportionate to the crime?
I agree. In earthly terms,
That it does need to be proportionate to the crime, or that it doesn't need to be proportionate to the crime?
it should be. It should be proportionate to the crime.
Okay, sure. And hell is not proportionate to the crime.
If the crime was proportionate, if that makes sense, if it's the rejection of Jesus would be a pretty large. If I was God, I would say that would be the worst one that I could have anybody do, would be to reject my son, or my form, so to speak.
But is
You know what
it
I mean?
an infinite crime, or is it like a finite crime?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, it would
How
need to
God-
be
I-
it would need to be
I
an
don't know how God
infinite
would feel
crime
that.
in order to stay
don't know.
consistent.
I don't know how God would look at that as a finite or infinite crime.
Okay, well, I mean, if it's a finite crime, then that means that God is giving unjust punishments. He's giving infinite punishment for finite crimes.
With the way it's set up, yes, you're right.
Okay, and that's unjust.
But if it's the parameters that we're using right now, yes, it would be unjust. But God is God. So I mean, I don't know. I don't have all the answers why he does certain things or why things happen. I can't give you, if you ask me a question, I will tell you I don't know the answer to it. I'm not going to come up with some pseudo intellectual answer.
That's fine.
You know what I mean?
Listen, like I appreciate that about you. You've been, you haven't like shied away from, telling me. But okay.
So it's kind of like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's kind of like we're stuck on a.
It seems like we have like a contradiction then, which is that the Bible says explicitly God is just in all the things that he does. He's just in all of his ways. But then you're telling me that God is doing something that's unjust.
Right. With the parameters we're dealing with. Yeah. I see that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate the conversation. Thanks so much for coming on up.
No problem. We got it.
Oop, fuck, I cut him too soon. I always do this. I'm so evil, dude. Mr. Peiko, thanks so much for the super chat. Catholic thinker paid hard-earned Catholic bucks for that clout. How dare you? That's true. It wasn't free clout. I've done a grave injustice to Catholic thinker. Catholic thinker, I'm so sorry that I said no free clout at you, carrying the implication that you were trying to gain free clout. That was not free clout. That was paid for clout. You paid for that clout. You deserve it. Catholic thinker made a video about the first way with respect to infinite regress and eternalism. And he wants you to know about that. Space Rat, thanks so much for the super chat. If I threw God at someone, nothing would happen. But if I threw a rock instead, that would hurt. Therefore, rocks are more powerful than God. I don't know if that follows. I'm not sure if that's like the way that we like measure like the power of something, right? Like if I threw like a big rock at you, it's going to do more damage than if I throw like a Glock at you. I don't think it follows from that fact that the rock is the more powerful thing there. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. And with that, we will go to the very next guest. Okay, wait. Sure. Or we won't. It's the law of excluded middle. Either A or not A. Excuse me. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. How old are you?
I'm 18.
Yep. And what religion?
Christianity.
Okay. What makes you think God exists?
Well, I wanted to continue on your the topic about hell.
Sure, yeah. Okay. So, do you think that hell is like suffering forever?
Well, yes, based on what the Bible says, it says that hell is eternal separation from God and that sin separates us from God. So when we commit sin, we are now separating ourselves from God.
Okay, sure. But it's suffering forever. It's infinite suffering.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think giving infinite punishments for finite crimes is just?
I would say I'm not God, so I can't honestly like speak for him when I say it's just, but I can say that we are imperfect beings. So to enter a holy kingdom, I mean, we would need a holy sacrifice, which is Jesus. So I would say that since he exists outside of time, obviously it's going to be an infinite, punishment.
Uh, that doesn't really seem to make much sense, and I also am not sure that that answers the question. I was asking you an abstract question about the justice of punishments. Do
Yeah,
you
my
think that
fault. I'm
it's
sorry.
just to give? No, it's totally fine. Do you think it's just to give an infinite punishment for a finite crime?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay, sure. And can you commit any or any infinite crimes in your finite life?
Yes.
Okay, what's an infinite crime that you could commit?
Sin.
All of it? It's all infinite?
Yes. All sin separates us from God. Yes.
Okay, so you think, for example, if I make like a crude joke, as it says you're not supposed to do in the New Testament,
And yes,
I don't
according
repent
to,
for that, you think that somebody who makes a crude joke and doesn't repent for that deserves torture forever?
I would say anyone that commits sin should be eternally separated from God by their own free will. So you are freely choosing to disobey God. Yes, you obviously chose to be separated from him. Yes.
Okay, so to be clear, that wasn't really like a super clear answer. You do think that for the crime of making a crude joke, you deserve torture forever?
Well, to our human knowledge, I mean, obviously it's not going to make sense because it's so little. It's just a joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, to God, it's sin. It's sin in His eyes, and all sin is bad. So therefore, all sin sends you to hell.
Okay. I mean, I take that to be an absurdity on face, but do you think like all sins are equal, or are there like some sins that are worse, some sins that are better?
All sin is equal. Yes.
That's like a wild position. So do you
Right.
think like telling a crude joke
Right.
is as bad as like murdering someone?
I know. I had the same doubts about it as well, but uh, basically, like I said, all sin separates us from God. So basically, He's a God described in the Bible is a holy being, correct?
Yeah.
He can't be surrounded by sin or whatnot. He's too perfect and holy, correct?
Yeah, according to the Bible, sure. But I
Right.
guess I just
So,
don't think that that answers the question. Do you
well, I'm,
think
I'm trying
that
to get to that.
murder is as bad as like telling a crude joke?
Yes,
Okay, I take that as another reductio. I think that's like pretty absurd.
I know. Like I said, it doesn't make sense to the finite brain to an infinite God. You know what I mean? Because
Okay.
I mean, we can sit here and say that you have the same knowledge as God, but I mean, we obviously know that's not true. So what He understands, we may not understand because
Okay.
can we agree?
Uh, I mean, I think that this is just an absurdity. So, okay, I totally agree. You know, if God is real, I'm not going to have the same understandings of things as he does.
Right,
But the understandings here are like basic foundational principles of justice.
right,
Presumably, every single thing I know about justice must be false if, in fact, the true reality is that telling a crude joke is as bad as murdering somebody. At that
right.
point, I probably just know nothing about justice. I probably just know nothing about morals,
Of course,
and I guess I just have reason to think that that's not true. I think that
of course.
I do know some things about justice, and I think I do know some things about morals. It just kind of seems like if God is real, then you can have no ethics.
Right.
Ian, I'm kind of surprised you're platforming this guy. I don't know if you know who this is.
I don't.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
this Star is
Yeah.
just someone who's done the equivalent of child grape.
What?
In his view, he did the equivalent
Oh,
of
sure.
child
Okay.
grape. So you just kind of want to be
Mm,
careful about your platform. Star, would you say that you've done the equivalent of child grape?
No. Can you explain what that is? I'm sorry, I'm not that smart.
yeah, like has
I don't know. I don't know what you're
are
comfortable saying.
you as evil as like a child rapist?
Oh, no, no, no. Of course not.
Well, you've done the equivalent of it because you've sinned, right?
Yes.
And all sins are equal.
Right. But that doesn't like
So
what you're
you're
saying here is Like all sin is
Just as
bad.
bad.
We're all bad, but that doesn't mean that the sin is equal. Same thing like here on earth, the justice system says, like if we were to say something bad about the government or threaten the government, of course we're going to go to jail regardless, but you wouldn't get the same punishment as somebody that murdered somebody, correct? But at the same time, they've both committed crimes.
So you would say not all sin is equal.
All sin is equal in, I'm sorry, in eternity wise, when we die, we're going to exist in eternity, right? Not right now in time. God exists outside of time.
Yeah, it
So there
sounds
are
like.
realms
Oh,
outside
sorry.
of time. You're defining it by time that we have now. So we're not gonna be in hell for 100 years or 20 years or something like that. We don't get that type of punishment. You get what I'm saying?
Wait,
Yeah,
so okay, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following along. So all
Yes, sir.
sin is equal, and you've
Yes.
sinned, and that sin
Yes.
is equivalent to the sin of like child rape. So you'd
Yes.
say that you've done something just as bad as child rape?
And in in the context, yes. But I haven't did
Ugh.
child rape, you know what I mean?
I know you haven't, but you've done something as bad as it. I guess that's like very unintuitive.
Right.
Like,
I know. I know, bro. I get
Yeah,
what you're saying.
I think you're better than that. But either way, it sounds like even if you're saying they are different, like the sins are different, the punishment is the same, which is the
Right.
injustice, right? Like you
Right.
said, if it was jail, people go to jail for different amounts of times for different
Right.
crimes. That
Different
is
punishments.
better
Yeah.
justice. But with God, there's one punishment for that is equal for like if you do child rape or if you steal bubble gum, you get the same punishment. That's the injustice.
Right. But like I said, like it's an outside of our time right now. It's not going to be like 20 years. All right, you just stole bubblegum, so you get 5 years in hell or something like that. It's outside of time. Therefore, all sin is bad, so you have the same punishment. Sin bad, you get punishment, basically.
Yeah, that's unjust.
okay, I mean,
I
I'm not
guess.
really sure where to take the conversation from here. I
Yeah, I
think that
know. I'm
that's
sorry.
like an absurdity. I don't know. Is there like some other topic that you wanted to talk about?
I'd say the resurrection. Do you believe that Jesus existed?
Yeah, I think that he existed.
Do you believe he rose from the dead?
No.
Okay.
We actually have really good evidence that he died because of the Shroud of Turin is a perfect photographic imprint of dead Jesus.
mm, I actually have to look into that. I appreciate you for letting me come on, though.
Yep.
I'm
I
just kidding.
appreciate
It's not really. That thing's fake. That's a fraud. I was just kidding.
But
Oh,
Don't believe me.
uh,
I got you.
do you have evidence for the resurrection?
I would just say the Bible, man. I mean, I haven't seen it for myself. I can only go based off of what the Bible says and the manuscripts we have of eyewitness testimonies, seeing Jesus raised from the dead,
Which
over 500 people.
eyewitnesses specifically?
I'd say his disciple, no, not just his disciples, Mary, one of his disciples, Mary Magdalene.
Do we have her eyewitness testimony?
Well, no, but
Whose
it's
eyewitness
within
testimony
the
do we
gospel,
have?
the Gospels,
Okay, which is whose eyewitness testimony?
Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John.
Okay, so I mean, the first thing there is that two of those people aren't even eyewitnesses.
Oh,
My understanding is that it's Luke and Mark are not
Luke and
eyewitnesses.
Mark,
They never knew Jesus. But okay, we have John and Matthew. Why would I
John and
think
Matthew.
that John or Matthew wrote John or Matthew? Because these books were originally written anonymously. It was only sometime later that the names John and Matthew were assigned to them. It was like hundreds of years after the fact.
Hmm. I don't have an answer for that, Ian, and I really appreciate. I'm gonna actually look into it. I will come back to you on that.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on up. Appreciate it.
Of course, appreciate it.
Just for the record, Star, you're not equal to a child rape. I just don't want him to have that be the takeaway. You
Yeah,
seemed really nice.
he
I don't know if
did.
you can
Yeah,
hear
it's
me.
I mean, he seemed like, he was like good faith enough. He was pretty good faith even.
Yeah,
Which
I give him 6 months of Christianity. He's on his way out.
sure. Yeah, it does make me sad to think about I don't know. Like, I think that it's like not a great endorsement of religion that this is what it does, that it makes you think that you're as bad as somebody who's like raped children.
Yeah, that's why they like slam so much guilt down everyone's face, because they all think everyone is a child rapist. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yep. All right.
Bye.
Later. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran as we go to the very next guest. Hey,
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? How old are you?
I am 18.
Sure. What religion?
So I am a hardcore Christian.
Okay. What makes you think God exists?
Well, there's been much evidence scientifically that has lined up towards the Bible, proving that the Bible was true. I just don't know how else creation would have evolved. Like do you believe that everything has a beginning and an end?
Yes, which is why God can't exist, because that means that he would have a beginning and an end. But of course, God is an eternal being. He exists without beginning and without end, which means that because everything has a beginning and an end, that means that there could be no God.
So then how do you think the universe created?
Wait, sorry.
How do you think?
Do you agree with the argument I just made?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. If everything has a beginning and an end, then that means that God would have a beginning and an end.
Yeah, which is not true because he is considered a supernatural being.
Okay, sure. Then not everything has a beginning.
Okay, so yeah, not everything in that case would have a beginning and an end. But everything else besides God, do you think has a beginning and an end?
Oh, no. I'm not sure why I wouldn't then draw the line elsewhere and say, well, everything other than like the universe and the energy within the universe has a beginning and an end.
So do you think our universe had a beginning and an end?
No, I don't see a reason to think that it did.
So how do you think this earth created? How do you think this earth was created?
By Earth, do you mean the universe?
So
Or
do
you mean like the planet?
I just mean like Earth in general, yes, the planet.
Okay, sure. Well, Earth came together. It was like particles that were drawn together by gravity, and then it became larger and larger until it was the size of this planet.
Okay, yeah. So then where do you think people evolved from?
Like a variety of creatures.
Okay, so do you believe, because I know a lot of people believe that we evolved from monkeys and
Nobody
different
believes
things like
that.
that.
Not a single person believes that we evolved from monkeys.
I've met quite a bit of people that actually believe that, believe it or not.
If anybody's ever told you that, they're incorrect. They don't
I know.
understand
I know
evolution if they're saying
Yep.
that.
Yep, I was just honestly just wanted to try to see like if you believed in that same thing.
Nope.
But yeah, I know they're incorrect about that. So you think we evolved from just many different animals and stuff?
Yeah. Currently, we are monkeys, or sorry, not monkeys. We're apes. So, fuck. Freudian slip. We are apes. We never evolved from monkeys. We do not share an ancestry with them. So we evolved from a lot of apes before us. And then there were various creatures before that we evolved from.
Okay. So, basically, I just believe how the earth was created was based off the Bible, because I feel like based off of how you described it, you said you were talking about a particle that got bigger that made the earth. Are you talking about an atom at that
just
point?
one. Okay, we're bouncing around a little bit. Let's just stick with like the topic of evolution.
Okay.
If God designed our bodies, then why is it the case that my kidneys create rocks?
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
Kidney stones. There's this agonizing thing that like a ton of people get called kidney stones.
Yep.
Where your kidney will make like a sharp rock, and then over the course of days, it will travel through your body, and it'll be like horrible, agonizing pain.
Mhm.
And then like a sharp rock will you'll have to pee it out, basically.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, why would God ever create it like that? Like, that's crazy.
And I think it was crazy too, but have you ever read the Bible?
Yep.
Okay, so you must know about going all the way back in Genesis where we had Adam and Eve.
But what's the evidence that that's true?
Is there any evidence that it's not?
Yeah, like tons and tons of it.
What's
You know-
some evidence that it's not true?
Yeah, like the entire fossil record, the diversity of our genetics, and just the evolutionary process overall indicates that we did not come from two humans, but rather the entire population of Homo erectus evolved into the population of Homo sapien. We didn't come from just two humans. Also, the Earth is like 4.5 billion years old. It wasn't created in 6 days.
Yeah. Now, like the previous couple people said, I may not have the answers to everything, so I may not be able to answer that for you. Because based off of what I believe that everything came from Adam and Eve. How Adam and Eve ate the apple, then that created sin, and that created pain and stuff like that. That's how I believe happened. And that's how I believe, when we're going back to your point of kidney stones and passing kidney stones and that sharp pain, well, you got to think, so this is again based off of how I believe how it was done, is that when they ate that apple, then that created the sin in the world. Because before that, I believe that we had no sin.
Okay, so the problem is that I provided evidence against this. So if you don't have anything to rebut the evidence and you yourself don't have any evidence of Adam and Eve, then it seems like I couldn't possibly accept this.
Okay. Would we be able to go on to another topic?
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
Alrighty. So I was sitting here and I heard you guys talking about the crimes and stuff, or the
Yep.
sins, and how sin is all equal, which I do agree with that.
Oh, come on.
But-
You don't want to do that.
Well, okay, I got a fair point for this. So, do you have a car? Do you drive?
Yep, I have a car.
Alrighty, so you care about your car probably a lot, right?
Yep.
So if somebody were to take a sharp object and scrape down the side of your doors with your car, that would probably make you mad, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd be pissed. Yeah.
If somebody were to take their car and run it up the side of your car, would you be just as mad?
Am I in the car
That's what you-
when they do this, or?
No, you are not inside of the car.
Okay.
Both times.
I mean, to me, that would be like roughly the same, because it's like the same amount of damage done to my car.
But it's not the same thing.
I agree. It's not the same
These are
thing.
two different objects. So
I think some
basically the
crimes
point-
can be equivalent. I don't think all crimes are equivalent.
So when we're talking about crimes, that's different. Crimes in the legal standpoint, the legal justice standpoint.
Sorry,
Crimes
I
are
should
all
clarify, like moral crimes. I'm not speaking of like legal crimes. I'm
Okay.
speaking of like moral ones.
Okay, so sins and stuff like that.
Yeah, or I don't know if I'd call them sins, but like, I think there are some acts of wrongdoing that are approximately as bad as each other. I don't think that all wrongdoing is equivalent to all other wrongdoing, but maybe I could get clear on your position and I can ask you some of the questions that the other guest was getting tripped up on. Or, I mean, I guess he wasn't really tripped up on it. He kind of just bit the bullet. Do
Yeah.
you think that telling a crude joke is as bad as murder?
In the standpoint of God, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
and
I
if God believes something, it's true in like an absolute objective sense, right?
Well, yes, quite. That's how I believe, quite frankly.
Yeah, sure. So then you would think that objectively speaking, murder is as bad as telling a crude joke.
I do. Because in that stance, like he said, one of the really good points he made, very good guy, by the way, he was up there. He a lot of knowledge about this stuff. But one of the things that he really said was that both of those things, they draw you away from God. Both of those things they are separating you from the internal life you can have with Christ. Do you get what I mean with that? But like they're separating you. So I feel like if any moral law that was broke or any quote unquote sin that was broke, then I feel like then they're just as bad because they're doing what sin or moral laws do. In the Christian standpoint, they separate you from Christ.
Okay. I guess I'll just ask you like the second question. Well, first, I mean, I think that's absurd. I think most people are going to think that that's absurd. Do you think that what you've done in your life is as bad as like a child rapist?
I guess that's really tough question to answer because, however, I really want to say no, but like
It's
in
a
the
crazy
Christian
conclusion. Yeah.
exactly it's and I don't like to confess that I really don't, and I don't like saying that it's just as bad because I've never done something that bad and I never would do something that bad. That's just disgusting.
Yep.
But
like objectively speaking, you do
objectively
things.
speaking,
Yeah.
in the Christian standpoint that I am in, yes, I do think it's just as bad.
You think
because
that you've done
not
something
one
as
sin
bad
is-
as child rape?
Yes, because not one sin is greater than another.
Okay, I think that's absurd.
And I've realistically speaking, no. I've never done something as bad as child rape, and no, I would never do something that bad.
Okay.
But in the Christian standpoint that I am in, based off of what God has taught us and what the teachings in the Bible say, yes, I do think that. Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I take that to be a complete absurdity. I just have like really good reason to think that that's false. Which
Okay.
is that I don't think that you've done anything nearly that bad. And I certainly don't think that I've done anything nearly that
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, you seem like a good guy.
Yeah, but and you do too. But do you have is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I just kind of wanted to chat with you, get your side of everything, let you know my side of everything, and just kind of have a friendly debate. you
Sure,
know?
yeah. Hey, thanks so much for coming on up.
Of course. You have a nice one.
Yep, you too. Appreciate it. Molly, I might be fucking things up, but I'm trying to get the notepad up here. Let me. This is like a good thing to remember to do pre-stream. Okay. Fuck. No, what have I done? What have I done? Thanks, Molly. I appreciate you. Okay. All right. If you're in that guest request box, or sorry, I have supers, but if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you are 18 or older and make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. Let's read the very next guest. Oh, okay. We'll come back to it. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Yep. How old are you?
I'm 28,
Okay. What religion?
Christian, Catholic.
What makes you think God exists?
Well, I think mainly the loss of logic, nature, design, beauty, physics, just everything that composes the universe, basically.
Okay. Which of those things? There's like a couple of things. So which of those things do you want to talk about?
I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah, let's focus on just one of them. We could do. I don't know. Okay. What about nature makes you think that God exists?
Let's see. Well, I guess there's many elements to it. You know, I know early you guys were talking about beauty and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But also there's everything in nature has a purpose, you know. So
I don't know if
it's
that's
been there's
true.
okay. How so?
Yeah, like what's the purpose of cancer?
Well, I guess that's more of like a medical question, as in like there is a reason why the cancer originates,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't be sure about that. But even at that level, there is a point to that cancer. No,
So
I'm not saying that it's good or bad, but there is an intent behind it.
okay, so I mean, I agree that there's like a cause to that cancer. A cause to something is something that happens like kind of before it. It's like prior to it in some sense. When something is caused to be. But a
Yeah.
purpose is like future directed. When something acts for a purpose, it has like a goal that it's trying to bring forward, and its actions are based on that goal. So I just I mean, do you think God gave cancer its purpose?
Not necessarily. So, in that sense, I think cancer is more of a manifestation of the fallen nature that we experience here on earth. But that's more of like a biblical kind of answer, which is something that I don't want to do. I want to stick to something that most people will be attracted to. But I guess at the time being, that'll be my response to that. I guess in a way you could argue that, there's a saying that out of bad things, good things come, which I never really like because it's not too profound. Like most people, it doesn't click with most people. But, to an extent, it is true. So I guess in the sense of if you believe in the Christian God, for example, you would maybe this cancer is something that brought you closer to him, right? Which I know it's like it's hard to understand, but if your ultimate goal as a Christian is to get close to him and that's the only thing somehow that brought you that, then in that sense that's why it happened, kind of thing.
Okay. So I guess I'm unclear on the answer to the question. So my question was like, where do you think the purpose of cancer came from, if not from God? It sounds like you're telling me that it came from sin.
In a way,
Are you saying that
it's a manifestation of the fallen nature that we now experience on Earth.
Okay, so a reason why I don't think that that's true is because of the prevalence of dinosaurs who had cancer. Here's a dinosaur bone, and this dinosaur bone has cancer. Maybe there's a couple of plausible explanations in your worldview. Perhaps it had something to do with maybe he was doing a bit of sin. Perhaps it was one of these other things. Maybe it's like one of the chemicals he was inputting into his body. Perhaps, of course, it could have been something in the diet. Regardless, we're still left with this like dinosaur bone with cancer. What would you make of that?
That we caused in a way, or is it God, right? So I find it very interesting that when Adam and Eve sin, right, when they eat the fruit, God says that they're gonna be like us, right? Meaning, I guess, in that sense, the Trinity, or I don't know, the supernatural. He says they're gonna be like us, knowing good and evil. Something that, as a Christian, it kind of threw me off, right?
Wait,
Because what does that mean, right?
I guess I'm confused
Go ahead.
as to how this like really answers the objection. So, in your view, if Adam and Eve are the cause of things like cancer, then how would you account for the fact that cancer existed in the dinosaurs millions of years before Adam and Eve even existed?
Right. Yeah, that's a good objection. I mean, I'm not too sure the extent in which that's 100% true. I mean, I actually didn't know about that one piece of evidence that you just brought about the cancer on dinosaurs.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm not too sure about that one. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Well, sure.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
do you
I
have anything
guess.
else? Do you want to talk about one of the other ones? Because kind of where I'm left off is that I don't think that these are very compelling responses to like, it kind of seems like the point that we're left at is that there's lots of things that don't look like they're designed at all. So that would be evidence against God's existence based on looking at nature.
So do you think that there is? What do you think cancer is like?
Are you asking like
In
what
your
causes it, or like towards what end
not
does
not
it
what causes it, but what's the like? What do you think it happens like?
towards what purpose?
Regardless of yeah, is there a purpose to it? Even?
No.
No, it just happens.
Yeah. And that's perfectly
Okay.
explainable on the atheist worldview, on like the naturalistic worldview. You know, we live in a universe where we assign purposes to things, but the universe itself does not operate on the basis of purposes.
Okay. So it's just something that exists, and we have to, like, you might get it or you might not get it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. What else?
You came in with a couple of things. Are there any more that you wanted to talk about?
Well, mainly, let's see.
If you're off the app, I can't hear you. You got to be on the app.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I guess the loss of logic will be one.
Okay, which laws of logic?
Let's see. Well, I know you've mentioned them before, and they do resonate with me
Mhm.
quite a bit. But for example, like, okay, not let's say loss of logic in general, but also like physics, math. Would you say that it takes a conscious intelligence to understand those?
Well, okay, so there's let's detangle this before we proceed. Laws of logic are very different from things like physics and even different from things like math. So of those, like, which do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about physics or do you want to talk about laws of logic?
Let's do loss of logic. That's fine. I
Okay.
just don't have them at the top of my head right now.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's say that it takes a consciousness to understand them. But an account that I could give for that is just that the laws of logic are necessary in order to have thoughts that are about things. So, in order to have a thought that is about a thing, what you're going to need to do is presuppose logic, because if something is out of line with logic, then you're not actually thinking about anything.
Right.
So then it seems like
Yeah,
we're capable of accounting for laws of logic just on like the naturalistic worldview.
Yeah, but I guess it still doesn't answer why they exist.
They exist because they're necessary for thoughts. They're abstractions of what's required to have a thought that's about something as opposed to nothing,
Yeah, but why would we need that?
in order to represent the world around us, in order to deliberate,
Yeah, but why deliberate in the first place?
because it's good for survival and reproduction.
Yeah, but we have a lot of animals that don't necessarily have complexity to them, like the loss of logic, that survive just as fine.
Well, first of all, a lot of these other animals themselves, they do have thoughts. So they are presupposing the laws of logic in their deliberation. But I mean, humans specifically, we have like a higher capacity for abstract thinking. So that's why we're aware of the laws of logic. These other animals are thinking in line with the laws of logic if their thoughts are indeed coherent. And if not, then they're not.
Is there any evidence to animals having thoughts? Like, how do we know that?
Because they have the same regions of the brain that produces thoughts in us. I mean, they deliberate on things like puzzles and how to solve it. You know, you can you can teach animals how to solve various puzzles in order to arrive at food,
But
and then they'll
like a
remember
rule?
those solutions to those puzzles. And if you create like some sort of difference there, they'll adapt to that difference.
Yeah, but is that the rule or is that an exception? Like,
For what?
do all animals are able to be trained in such a way, or is it like just a few of them?
I don't think I guess there are probably animals that don't have thoughts. Like they probably have like experiences, but I'd be skeptical that they have like mental representations of things.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I mean. I mean, it's like, okay, it's true, right? Like it's definitely true with humans. We see that behavior displayed on some animals, but then some other animals or other organisms survive just as fine without the complexity. So I don't think the complexity is required for survival.
It's about the type of organism that you are. Humans specifically are optimized for being beings who think, who are social, and who use tools. All of this kind of works together. And something that strengthens all of these things is deliberation. Humans are extremely adaptable. And one of the things that allows us to be very adaptable, whether it be in our diet, our environment, whatever, is our ability to deliberate.
Right.
So there are some animals for which those things are not a factor, where the way that they survive and reproduce is by having like 1 trillion children.
Right.
And for them, like they don't need to deliberate on things, you know, even if a lot of the children make bad decisions because they didn't deliberate, you know, you still have the other ones who are able to survive and reproduce.
Yeah, I guess that's true. The only thing that makes it difficult for me is the big leap between something like an ant, you know, and then humans. Like, if the goal is for both of them to survive and thrive, whatever that looks like, why would we evolve in such a complex manner to something so simple or similar to what an ant would want to do?
How many ants do you think exist within the world? It's okay if you don't know. I didn't know either. I just looked it up. 20 quadrillion ants exist within the world. 20 quadrillion. That's 20 followed by 15 zeros. It's a fuck ton of ants. You know, in that sense, ants are very good at surviving and reproducing. They're everywhere. They make tons of themselves. They just have a completely different strategy than we do. You know, for us, the individual human is extremely important for the survival and reproduction of the next generation, whereas ants are like super expendable.
Right. So they don't require that complex survival, I guess.
They certainly don't require like complex thoughts.
Yeah, I guess that somewhat makes sense. I mean, I'm still not entirely sure that, you know, because in a way, you say that, I guess in that way, ants are superior to humans, right?
There are certainly more ants. I mean, if that's what you mean by superior, they're way better at having more kids than we do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's true. It's just, I find it hard to believe that that's the sole purpose of humanity. I mean, you can only get so far with just survival. And then that kind of plays into morals and ethics, you know. What does it's survival the one thing that all humans should make a priority? Like, is that like then
I mean, everyone should like value themselves. And as an extension of that, that means that you shouldn't be trivially sacrificing your life or anything like that. But that's like a normative question as opposed to descriptive questions related to evolution and why certain things evolved in certain ways. I think that just because something evolved in a specific way does not mean that we have some sort of like moral obligation. I think that ultimately what we're morally obligated to do is to succeed in the lives that we live, and in order to do that, we need to be virtuous. So
Right.
that's going to be what the foundation of ethics is just, living a successful life, which requires virtue, which means that every single person has a reason to be virtuous in the way that they live their lives.
And would you say that that's like an absolute?
Yes.
Like all humans should understand that.
Oh, I'm not making the claim that they all like know that that's true, but yeah, every human should be virtuous. Yes.
Okay. But I guess my difficulty with that would be that if you and I we were to take completely different paths on the things that we do. Let's say I'm a drug addict or I do crimes, and then you live a pretty normal life. You try to pay your taxes, I guess, whatever, and we are both in a car, and then we both die at the same time, the same reason. Then it's kind of like there's almost no in my view, outside of Christianity. If I wasn't a Christian, I'll have a hard time kind of like justifying that. I'll have a hard time justifying making your point an absolute.
I'm not sure what the specific objection there is.
Well, I'm just saying that if the goal of humanity should be to be virtuous and live a good life, but then the evidence shows that we all make different decisions and that we all don't know that, yet we all die. We could die the same way. I don't know what the benefit on that is. In other words, like, why would I have to?
Because otherwise you can't live a good life, a life specifically that you yourself can rationally reflect on and think is a good life.
Well, yeah, but if I guess at that point it kind of becomes slightly subjective. Like, I could say that a good life for me would be, getting a bunch of money and living outside of society, and I guess I can get away with stealing
Is that
that.
in line with virtue?
Not necessarily, but that's my point. Like, if I
Wait,
can
did you say
survive,
that you'd be stealing in this scenario?
yeah, like if I was to steal and get my goal and survive just as fine, then where is the virtuous in that?
Yeah,
Like,
so the reason why this spikes you out of the ability to have a good life is because when you're stealing, you're jettisoning the virtue of justice. And by doing so, you lose the ability to fairly evaluate the things around you. What a virtue is a character trait. It's a disposition to behave in specific ways consistently across circumstance. So when you're getting rid of justice, that means that you don't believe that you should treat similar cases similarly, which means that you're completely incapable of evaluating how your life is compared to ways that it otherwise could be, which means you can't have a good life because you can't even know your own life. You can't have any sort of evaluative standpoint that has any justification when you reflect on how your life is going, insofar as you're not justified in the sorts of comparisons that you make between your life and other ways that it could be going and other people's lives. You just can't evaluate your own life at that point, which means that you can't have a good life.
Right. Well, I guess in a way that's something that I would attribute to God in a way.
Why? I made no mentions of God. Clearly we can justify these beliefs with no reference to God.
I'm not saying that you said that, but just thinking right now that essence of virtuousness that human possess is something that I would also claim as evidence of God.
Why?
Because how we were talking about before is something very specific for humans, and then the concept of God again is specific to humans. Like no animal is questioning that, so it all comes back to humans, right? And so
I guess I didn't really get a clear answer there. Why do you think virtue suggests that God exists?
because of its complexity.
I mean, arguably, virtue is very simple.
No,
it all comes down to wisdom, right? You can summarize all virtue as like, a disposition to behave in the right ways, for the right reasons, in the right circumstances, towards the right ends, etc. Arguably,
that's what
all
I'm saying,
virtue
that-
reduces to wisdom itself, which is also a virtue. So,
Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's like it's something very specific to humans, and I guess in the way that we were created / evolved. Like no animals are having this discussion, right? So
it's because other animals aren't capable of evaluating and reflecting. They're not capable of asking the question, what should I do? And unless you can ask the question, what should I do? And rationally reflect on the nature of your life, on human lives in general, then
Right.
you're incapable of having these sorts of normative reasons. So in that sense, the fact that other animals aren't capable of like metaphysical thought is going to be the thing that is why humans have an obligation towards themselves to be virtuous, and other animals might lack that obligation.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's in that sense that position describes a lot of it, but it still undermines the why. At least in my view.
The why for what?
For being virtuous. Because even you can tell me that being virtuous and wisdom, it's an absolute that all humans should strive for.
Mhm.
But then in order to survive and arguably live a pretty comfortable life, you don't have to be that.
But if you want to
And
live
yet-
a good life, if you want to live a successful life, if you want to live the life that's rationally the most desirable to live, you need to be virtuous. Otherwise, you forfeit the good life.
Yeah, but that would be subjective, right? Like we
Nope.
all have different. How so?
Because the objective part of that is virtue. You can live, there is subjectivity to the sort of life that you personally want to live, but it all comes back to virtue. Whether it's a good life or not is objectively determined by whether it's a virtuous life or not.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. I just don't. If my contingency with this point is that it seems to be that we essentially evolve to die. Even if we have an inclination to be virtuous and survive, we all die at some point, either early on or later on in our lives.
You're
So-
applying like purpose words to evolution. Evolution doesn't operate within like purpose. Evolution produces things that are good at surviving and reproducing. And I don't think that descriptive facts about evolution are what moral facts reduce to.
But will you say that the inclination to be virtuous and wise is a direct product of our evolution, like our brain?
Well, I think our propensity towards like wisdom or our capability to be wise about things, or reflective about things does come from evolution, but the moral facts themselves are not what evolution produced us to do, whatever that means. Rather,
Well,
they're
but
things that you
that's what
arrive
I'm
at on the
saying.
basis of
Well,
rational reflection.
So if it doesn't come from evolution 100%, where does it come from?
It comes from logic. Being a reflective agent and reasoning about what you should do leads you to the conclusion that you must be virtuous.
So in a way, the loss of logic will be untangible, right?
Wait, sorry,
they're-
they're what?
Untangible, like they're not
They're not
they're
touchable.
not they're
Yeah,
not
they're
touchable.
like
There's not-
abstractions of what you need in order to
But that
form
and
coherent
that goes back
thoughts.
to my. That's why I say that's an evidence of God, right? Because it'll be in line with that supernatural abstraction that we don't fully understand. We
Wait, but I
understand
gave
it.
you a natural explanation that you had nothing to say.
Can
Like,
you
what would be
remind
your
me why?
so okay? The explanation, in my view, for the laws of logic is that they're necessary in order to have thoughts. That when you have thoughts, then you're presupposing the laws of logic. Absent presupposing the laws of logic, you don't have any thoughts. You're not thinking about anything in particular. So, insofar as humans evolved to think about things, because that's necessary in order to deliberate about what you should do, which of course is good for survival and reproduction. You know, absent that, I mean, we just have like an explanation for why
Well,
this
but
sort of thing would come about.
that would be my explanation. It would all come down to God, right? Because that's the way we were created. That was the purpose that we came about with.
Why would God give us so many cognitive biases?
How many what?
Why would God give us so many cognitive biases?
Well, I don't think he sat down and planned that to happen that way. At least not the God of the Bible, right? Like if we were to argue that, I guess in a philosophical way of thinking, you can open the conversation, but if we were to talk about the God of the Bible, we know that there was a specific path and purpose to humanity that we've rejected. So I don't think that was his initial idea. So it goes back to the fallen nature that I was talking about.
Okay, that doesn't really make much sense. Why would the fallen nature produce these specific cognitive biases? I mean, so I'll give you some examples of them. You know, we're very inclined to think that when something happens around us, that there's an agent responsible for it. When we hear something fall down around us, we think that an agent is responsible for it. If you hear like a thump in the middle of the night, you think that there's like an agent causing that. You know, when you hear noises, you think that it's an agent behind it. And there's an evolutionary reason for that. If you assume that all of these phenomena are caused by agents, then you're very likely to run away. You'll sprint, you'll flee, which is good. It's good for your survival to assume that there are agents about when you're not sure what is causing the things around you. If you don't make that assumption, then you're going to get eaten by a predator. So that makes perfect sense. Why we would be attributing agency to all these things that happen around us from an evolutionary point of view? It makes no sense at all why God would design us to do that.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I have a lot of points, but I'll have to go back to my notes, which I have on my phone. So, no, I think it was a pretty good conversation. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on up. Appreciate you. Let's read supers. Ikipo, thanks so much for the super chat. Apes are simiiforms, which is a synonym for monkey. Synonym or the same classification? I don't care if it's like a synonym. I want to know whether or not it's the same taxonomical classification as monkeys. And my understanding is that it's not. That the word monkey refers to a specific taxonomy, and that humans aren't a part of that. And neither were our ancestors. Jamming, thanks so much for the super chat. In the spirit of sinning with a crude joke, you know the difference between Woody from Toy Story and Trump? Woody goes limp when... Oop. Okay. Buddy Christ, thanks so much for the super chat. Eternal life with God sounds like hell to me. Yeah. Sonus Percussion, thanks so much for the 20 gifted memberships for Cool Corey subscription. Welcome everybody who got a membership. You can join the members only Q&As that happen from time to time, the members only book streams that happen from time to time. And Dracos Rose, thanks so much for becoming a magnificent Mary. That's great. All right. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. Okay, wait, get a grip. Thanks so much for the super chat. People misunderstand the verses that talk about this. All sin separates us from God. It's not that murder is just as bad as telling a crude joke. It's that they are both rebellion against God. That's totally chill. I think that that's like the reasonable perspective to take. Unfortunately, that's not the perspective that people were taking. They were saying that they are the same. So if that's true, that's like kind of like a personal failing, mayhaps. All right, let's go to the very next guest.
Hello.
Hey, how's it
How are you
going? Doing well.
I'm well.
Yeah, how old are you?
I am 29.
Okay, and what religion?
Catholic.
Okay, what makes you think God exists?
I believe that he rose from the dead.
Okay. What makes you think that Jesus rose from the dead?
I think that the beginning and spread of Christianity is solid evidence. You can see the effect of that. These are people who, following a Messiah, typically in messianic movements in the first century Judea, they did not continue after the Messiah figure was killed. But this one did continue and radically grew, and the people who had followed him went on to essentially die for preaching that he did rise from the dead. And people typically don't die for opinions that they, or for beliefs that they know to be false.
Okay. There's a bunch of things to unpack there. So I could make like a parody. I could make a parody argument with like a lot of conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories go through a bit of like an evolutionary process where some of them make it to the mainstream, and then a lot of them, there's like two people that believe in it, and then it like dies in obscurity. So I don't think the fact that some conspiracy theories make it to the mainstream are an indication that they're true, but rather that there's something that resonates with people. Likewise, I don't think the fact that Christianity makes it to the mainstream or that it like spreads so much means that it's true, but rather that there's something in it that resonates with people. If you want a good suggestion for what it is that's resonating with people, Jesus's message is quite simple. The world is ending. You need to start believing in me and start like forming the relationship with me, praying, etc., in order to get into heaven. That's a very resonating message with the average human mind that's prone to catastrophizing. I mean, holy shit, the world is ending. Of course I'm gonna believe in Jesus.
So I guess the question goes back to, do you think the 12 apostles that went on to go all the way to Spain, to India, to Ethiopia, all of which met gruesome deaths, why do you think they would have done this?
So you're presupposing that that's what happened?
It is what happened. We have good historical evidence for that.
Please, yeah. So I understand that there's historical evidence for, I believe it's like Peter. We have evidence that Peter was martyred. We have no indication that Peter was martyred for the resurrection. And then we have no evidence that any of the rest of them were martyred. So what's the evidence, for example, that, I don't know, like John was martyred, or I guess any of the other 11?
John specifically is believed not to have been martyred.
Okay, sure.
But that's the one outlier. There are different accounts from tradition. This is, again, 2,000 years ago. So the exact evidence that we have for each of them is more local oral tradition for each of the different churches. And I believe there is a tomb in Spain for, I want to say Andrew. But they did establish churches. So they established local communities in all the places that they went. So you can go essentially kind of like Alexander with the renaming of the cities that he did on his form of conquest. You can trace their journeys that way because they still exist there.
Okay, so why would that indicate that they were martyred?
Just the local communities say that is essentially what happened. Again, why would you lie about that?
Okay, Can I get like a specific example of this, maybe? I feel like I feel like you've been talking for the last like 30 seconds and like a lot of like vague statements, and let's just get very specific. What's one that you think is an instance of martyrdom, and you have like some resource that you could point to that clearly documents why we should believe that this person was martyred for the resurrection?
If you want, we can dig into that, but that's not really a claim that's historically contested.
It is historically contested.
It is? Okay. Can you show me that?
Yeah, I mean, for example, I bet I guess I could like look this up just to make sure, but I'm pretty
Because
sure Bart.
if
I'm
none
pretty
of
sure
them were martyred and we have no proof
Ehrman
of that, I feel like
would
that would come up as a
contest
polemic.
that they were, they were martyred for the resurrection.
Martyred for their Christian beliefs. We don't have to say the resurrection specifically,
Wouldn't
but
that
since the
include the
resurrection is like the core tenet of Christianity, they're kind of one and the same.
Okay, let's check. Were the disciples martyred over the past years? I've wondered how many of the disciples came to Jesus. Yeah. Bart Ehrman, for example, says that we don't know if any of them were martyred and for what.
Who's Bart Ehrman?
Bart Ehrman is a Bible scholar.
From when and where?
Do you want like his university?
Just general time frame. Is he
He's
like
like modern.
Modern. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me look this up.
Mm-hmm. He has a blog post, where the disciples martyred for believing in the resurrection. It's the top of the second paragraph. In the end, I'm afraid we simply don't know.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what are you looking up? Are you like checking his credentials or what's up?
Yeah, I am.
That's fine.
Following up on that.
You can do that. That's no problem. He's like a very well-respected Bible scholar.
There are, the events do happen 2,000 years ago, so it is a little difficult to trace back physical evidence. Like, we don't have a ton of evidence for much of what happened exactly, especially first-hand accounts. Like, the commentaries of Julius Caesar, like the earliest copy of that we have is from the 16th century.
Sure, but the documents that mention him, so if what you're looking at specifically is like copies of documents, then yeah, a lot of those come like thousands of years after the fact. But the things that they're a copy of are going to be contemporary to people like Julius Caesar or people like Socrates. We have copies of Plato's works, and the earliest one might be from, I don't know, like the 1200s or something, but it's a copy of a work from like the 300 BC era.
Mm-hmm. Right, but again, how can you prove accuracy to a copy of something that you don't have the original?
I mean, if that's the stance you wanted to take on things, then we would just be skeptical of all of history. I'm not even sure what documents would suggest that they were martyred.
Let me see. So James is recorded within, I believe, Acts, his
Mhm.
martyrdom.
Why would I think Acts is true?
I think Acts is largely true, especially for the more core historical claims in it.
Why? Why would I believe that Acts is true?
Again, you can trace what was going on. There are things that are corroborated in it. It's accurate to the history of the time. It's also not that far off from the events. Do you know
Can
what
I get
Acts?
something more specific? Like there was like a couple of like really vague things again. You're just saying, well, you should believe Acts because it's accurate to the history and it's like not far off from events. That's like, I don't know. It's not very specific.
Okay, it's a contemporary account, off by maybe 20 to 30 years for the events. They're following the journeys of the apostles, predominantly Peter and Paul, whose actual movements do correlate to other things happening at the time. And so there's not really a lot of reason to doubt at least the part where you have Paul going to a city to preach at like a specific stop.
Okay. But what's the evidence that it's true?
What is... So, like, do you want me to have, like, videotape of it?
No, I didn't ask for videotape, just like evidence, like the same way that we would establish other historical claims. For example, like Socrates existed, and we can determine this on the basis of, you know, all of the people that mention and talk about Socrates and give at least like some overlapping similar
Right.
characterizations of him. And we know exactly who these people are with their manuscripts mentioning Socrates, you know, from Plato to I forget the historian's name, whatever, to Aristophanes, the playwright, for example, and Aristotle mentions him. So we know who the people are who are
So, like,
Xenophon. That's the historian's name, is Xenophon. Yes.
So for historical accounts of Jesus, people writing about him, you have the first or second-hand accounts in the Gospels written that he existed. I believe there is it's not really contested that Jesus lived as a person
I agree.
and was crucified under Pontius Pilate. So I'm not sure where the skepticism that like Peter and Paul went to Greece and preached what they had.
I'm just
had
asking,
learned.
like, why would I think that the Book of Acts itself is true? Because it makes supernatural claims. And
Well,
I
yeah, I'm
just
not
have a
talking
very
about
high bar
the
of evidence for
supernatural.
supernatural claims. Like, for
Okay.
example, you know, when I was in 8th grade, one of my friends told me that she had the power to turn into a wolf, and she also told me that she was a black belt in Taekwondo. I have no problem believing the claim that somebody's a black belt in Taekwondo just on the basis that, you know, a ton of people are, and she's claiming it. So I'm fine accepting it on that basis.
Okay.
The claim that she could turn into a wolf, I have quite a different standard of evidence for a claim like
Right.
that. I asked her straight up to show me, otherwise I wouldn't believe her. So I have a pretty high bar for evidence for supernatural claims, and I'm willing to accept like
the claim
claims
that I'm
are
making about the apostles specifically is not a supernatural claim, though.
Acts. The Book of Acts contains lots of supernatural claims, so I'm not
Right.
sure why I would believe it.
Okay. So are you saying that the whole account is a fabrication?
I'm saying I'm
or
agnostic
fundamentally
to the Book of
unreliable?
Acts. I would want some sort of evidence to demonstrate the truth of it.
Okay. I can look into that as well. That might take some time and bog us down a little. There are earlier accounts or later accounts in the 1st to 4th century of the successors of the apostles writing about what they had heard. So this would be probably on par with like Tacitus and his accounts of events that happened 80 or 100 years before he's writing about them.
Yeah, the question is whether or not there's like the unbroken chain. And also, the longer the chain gets, the less plausible it is that things have been preserved accurately.
Just the records of someone's death.
Sure. I mean, Specifically, are they citing any sort of evidence that the death was for the resurrection? Like, I agree, a lot of these apostles died. A lot of them were killed, maybe even for their Christianity. But specifically, what I would be interested in is a claim that they died professing the resurrection, and they died in like horrific ways professing the resurrection.
Okay. Would you say that the resurrection is a core tenet of Christianity?
Yeah, in modern day, I totally agree. To be a modern day Christian requires a belief in the resurrection, or I'd assume it probably does. I'm not sure why I would think that, well, the tenets of Christianity were still getting sorted out, while the mythology was, or in my view, the mythology was still getting really settled down. I don't know why I would think that the Christianity they believed in is the same thing as the Christianity that currently exists, that the myths are exactly the same.
So a large portion of the New Testament is the epistles of Paul, the Pauline epistles. Those date to about 20 to 30 years after when the resurrection would have occurred. And they do demonstrate that that is already the belief.
But why would I think that that belief was specifically held by the people or by like the disciples?
Well, one, it's the written account of a disciple, because Paul is considered a disciple. Even
I'm
though
asking about like the eyewitnesses, like the people who were like gruesomely martyred, who would have had access to the information of whether or not the resurrection occurred.
Right. Paul, in church tradition, would be counted among that, even though he does come a little later, because you do have accounts of Paul interacting with Christ in a post-resurrection appearance on the road, which was accepted by the apostles.
Okay.
So unless you're starting from a position that that is impossible and God is not real, you kind of have to just accept that that was the accepted belief of the group of the apostles.
In the year 2000, Shanti Kali, a Hindu priest, was executed by Christian terrorists. Shanti Kali had experiences, or claimed to have visions and experiences of the Hindu gods, and then grew quite the following preaching about Hinduism, until one day there was a group of Christian terrorists that showed up and demanded that he say that what he was talking about, that what he saw was false, that he converted to Christianity. And when he says, nope, I'm not going to convert to Christianity, I know Hinduism is true, I know that I've seen the Hindu deities, they executed him. In your view, do you think Shanti Kali died for a lie?
I don't believe that he died for what he believed was a lie.
Sure. So you think maybe he like hallucinated?
It's possible. It's much more possible for one person to hallucinate than for 12 people to have similar hallucinations.
Why would I think that Paul's wasn't just a hallucination?
You know, again, as I said, it's whether or not you're presupposing that's possible or not.
To have a hallucination? It's certainly
no. Christ corroborated his account when he came to them. And that's recorded in the book of Acts, which again is not written that far after the actual events.
What question do you think I just asked you?
Do I think that what was the fella's name?
So the question I asked you, why would I think that Paul didn't hallucinate?
So,
like, what's different between Shanti Kali and Paul, such that you're willing to say like Shanti Kali definitely hallucinated, but then Paul, couldn't have happened?
It's not that so much that Paul could not have hallucinated, it's so much that everyone, all 12, could not have had the same hallucination.
Okay, but to be clear, when we're evaluating whether or not Paul actually met Jesus or whether it was just a hallucination, you have no reason to believe that Paul didn't have the hallucination, but Shanti Kali did. Like, there's no symmetry breaker here.
I suppose the difference would be whether once he met the other apostles, because this is before he had met them, and whether or not they corroborated his story.
And why would that mean that he didn't hallucinate? Also, to be clear, the two accounts of Acts of Paul's vision contradict each other. And one of them, it claims Paul was traveling with his companions, and then he saw the light, but nobody else could hear anything. And then the other one, it's like everybody could hear, but only Paul could see the light. So these are like incompatible states of affairs. The Book of Acts is contradictory in that regard.
Are they both in the Book of Acts, or is one in the
Yes,
Apocrypha?
both are in the Book of Acts.
Okay. Can you give me the verses for those?
Yep, it's Acts 9:7 and Acts 22.
Any subverse on 22? Or just 22?
Sorry, let me pull up the specific verses for you. Okay, so I have Acts 9:7. The men who were traveling with him stood speechless because they heard the voice but saw no one. And then Acts 22. Let me get the specific verse for you.
So it seems to be a Greek issue in that
Okay.
the Greek word in one of them accounts to perceiving sound, and the other is on failure to understand the sound.
Wait, okay, did they... So, what's the apologetic? I'm a bit lost.
Okay, let me pull these up. So in Acts 9:7, and I'm pulling this off of a thread in Academic Biblical. Is one of the first things that popped up. I skipped the got questions because I know that is I think it's a Mennonite or Amish website.
I thought it was Protestant, but sure.
Same thing. Or baked potato.
Sure.
So this is saying that in 9:7, it's saying that the men were with him, were dumbfounded by the voice and saw no one. So they heard something, but they don't understand. And in 22, it's saying that they saw the light, were afraid, but they didn't listen to the voice of the one talking to him.
Sure. I guess I'm pulling up the Greek right now. So wait, what's the word that you think is like the issue here?
I do not understand Greek, so I am relying on the explanation from Reddit in this case.
It would appear to be the same root word for the hearing. And then for the seeing,
so I don't think that is that different of an account.
okay, I mean, the word appears to be the same one, or at least it seems to have the same root for when it speaks of like the hearing in Acts 9:7. It uses, I'm probably gonna butcher it, ekontes, and then in 22:9, maybe it's ekousan. So there's like the kous, which I would imagine is like the same root word.
It might be the same root word.
Because my understanding is like the word for like understanding in Greek is something like episteme.
Are you very familiar with Greek?
I'm familiar with specifically like the philosophical concepts or like the words that are present in philosophy today that derived from Greek. One of them is epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, but there's lots of literature on how probably a better translation for epistemology would be like the study of understanding.
Okay. I don't know enough about Greek to have any opinion beyond what I'm reading about this in like the first results.
I wonder, I don't know if the Bible guy or if Justin is around. If anybody has like some insight into this. But if not, paging Justin, I see you there. That's okay. He could totally be busy.
But I don't think it's that large of a contradiction, especially if there's confusion around hearing and understanding. Both could easily be true.
Yeah, I guess the problem is that what we're trying to determine is whether or not the Book of Acts is like a consistent, reliable narrative of people's testimony, and I guess it just doesn't seem like it is.
Why?
Because
It's the supernatural claims.
Well, yeah, and like it's the contradictions. It's not really even the supernatural claims. For this, the issue appears to be the contradiction.
Do you have a larger contradiction than what appears to be two accounts that don't actually contradict each other?
I don't grant that these don't contradict each other.
Okay. I'm not really sure what to say at that point then. I don't. So are you saying that the Greek and the ability to hear and understand, and if those are represented differently, that saying in one case someone did not hear and understand versus saying someone did not understand?
Okay, maybe you could
that's a full contradiction.
Sorry, maybe you could help me with something. I could pull up the Greek, and then you could tell me what's the word here that's meant to. Or sorry, so wait, which verse are you saying is like the one about understanding?
I am again just going off of. Do you want to pull up the Reddit thread that I was looking at?
I mean, I could, but
me.
are they telling you like the name of the word?
They do cite the Greek in the word, but I don't speak Greek. I don't understand Greek, so I can't really comment on it more than
Dalton's here. He'll be able to clarify this.
Yeah, I just got here. So what are we talking about?
We're talking about a contradiction between Acts 22:9 and Acts 9:7. Are you familiar?
Yeah, is this about how the contradiction in regards to Paul's testimony?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and I could totally be getting blindsided here. Do you think that this is like a genuine contradiction, or do you think that like with like an understanding of the Greek?
Oh no, the Greek doesn't help this at all. No, the contradiction is genuine. But the author of the Book of Acts just doesn't do a very good job in being consistent. Not only is he not consistent with himself, but he's even inconsistent with Paul's own testimony in his own letters.
Okay. Sure. So the apologetic that this guy is saying is that one of the words, are you saying like just to clarify, you're saying that the word that's translated as here for 22 it actually means something closer to like understand?
That seems to be what this is saying. Again, I don't speak Greek. I don't understand Greek. I'm just referencing what comes up when I Google Acts 9:7 and Acts 20.
I can look at the Greek. Which verse in specific are we looking at?
This is Acts 22:9 and Acts 9:7. I can pull it up on screen. So I think it's this word.
Also, nice to meet you. My name is Mike.
Howdy, Mike.
9. I'm not familiar with you, so it would be helpful if I had an introduction.
Yep.
I'm just the Bible guy. I'm a resident atheist Bible expert, and as far as I can tell by looking at the usage of this word in Acts 22 verse 9, which is the Greek word akuo, throughout the Gospels, it repeatedly doesn't refer to the idea of understanding, but refers always to the idea of hearing something, such as Matthew 2:3. When Herod the king had heard of these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Or let's go with Matthew 4:12. When Jesus had heard that John was cast into prison, he departed into Galilee. It's always about receiving auditory like information.
I see. Okay, maybe, but let's say maybe we got it like turned around. So what about this one?
I'm sorry. What's the difference between receiving auditory information and understanding what was said?
Yeah, I have tons of Christians all the time that I talk to, and they receive auditory information from me, but they sometimes don't understand what I'm saying. They can hear something and not understand what I'm saying.
Right. But I guess if you're saying understand what you're saying, as in like actually hear the words you've said versus not like hearing that you're speaking, but not being able to distinguish words that you're saying, how would those two be different?
Yeah, can you hear things and not understand what's being told to you?
Yes, but you can also not understand in a sense of not actually being able to differentiate the sounds that you do hear.
Akuntes, which is just the plural. This is like the plural form of the same Greek word akuo. It simply just again means that without they did not hear. It's got the means without hearing.
So that would be like silence, not
as in they did not hear. Or in this case, speech hear indeed the voice they didn't. The voice it's a contradiction here. It means the same thing. It's like hearing, just taking in information.
Right, but hearing, like saying I didn't hear you, doesn't mean I didn't hear anything.
That does mean that.
So if I say, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear you. Does that mean that I heard nothing or that I didn't understand what you said?
In the case of the Gospels, throughout the Gospels, the word for, not just the Gospels, but the New Testament in its entirety, there is no examples where this Greek word is ever used to mean understand. It's repeatedly used to refer to the action of hearing.
Right.
So the specific thing that's like singled out is like the thing either being heard or not heard is the voice, like the voice of the person speaking.
Yeah. Earlier, he had said it was the receiving of auditory information.
And then in context, it's of course going to be like the receiving of the auditory information of like the voice. Like, we all know what hearing is. You either hear the voice or you don't. You
can hear a sound without receiving the auditory information of the sound.
So, okay, I think, and Dalton can correct me if I'm wrong, but when he says like receiving of auditory information, I think he's just talking about hearing.
Yeah. We have a Greek word for understand.
What's the Greek word for understand?
So it's the Greek word synime. It's spelled sigma, upsilon, nu, iota, me. But but it's used throughout the Gospels. Like, example would be let me take a look at Matthew 8:28. And he said unto them, how is that you do not understand? And it's the Greek word sunete, which is just like a variation verb, plural, as second person indicative present. But it's the same words, the word for understand. We have a word for understand in the Greek. If the author of the book of Acts intended for that meaning, they could have used a word that meant understand, but instead they just mean hear.
Okay. I don't have none of the results that I'm looking for confirm that, and I'm not looking for things that would confirm my opinion. So if you have something that goes into that specific use of Greek, because again, I don't understand Greek, I don't speak Greek, I'd be more than happy to look at it.
Yeah, the Strong's number for the actual word for understand, if you want to look at the actual Greek, is it's Greek 4920.
Do you have like any biblical scholarly article making this argument that I could see?
I've got the Thayer's Greek Lexicon.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's a standard. It's one of the standard Greek lexicons used by scholars when we want to know what the Greek says. You either use Thayer's, or if you've got the money, the BDAG. But I ain't got the money.
Okay. And so I can reference the Thayer.
Yeah, like are you familiar with the website Blue Letter Bible?
It's what popped up when I Googled it, so I'm on it now, but I'm not familiar with it.
If you go to Blue Letter Bible and you type in, click on any particular Greek word, you can scroll down and, skip the Strong's Concordance Dictionary because that one's absolute shite. But on the Greek, there will be an entry for the Thayer's Greek Lexicon.
Okay, so I typed in the verse, and it was Acts 9:7.
All right.
Hearing. The Greek 191.
Let me take a look. Akunta. Yep, that's the one. And you scroll down to the Thayer's Greek Lexicon. The entry is to be endowed with the faculty of hearing, aka not deaf.
And then what is the second one?
To attend to consider.
Can you complete that line, actually?
What is or has been said.
So that would be to understand what someone would have said.
To consider something. Like, I'm considering your words.
Right. But to consider your words, you would have to you would have to, and when I say understand, I mean in the way that like a transcription bot would understand, in that they would correctly identify the words in which you had used.
No, we have a Greek word for that already.
Okay. And this can never mean that, even though that's the second definition provided?
It can be used to consider, but not understand. Understand is the Greek word suname.
What is the third definition?
To perceive the sense of what is said. But this is like a very rare occasion. The question is, what is the normative meaning?
Wait, am I looking at the same spot? Because under 3 I have tropically to understand, perceive the sense of what is said.
Tropically.
But that's the same line that you're seeing?
Yeah.
And then it provides...
But the question is, what is the normative instance? Like, for example, in Acts, we are hearing the same exact story being told twice. Mm-hmm. The same exact testimony. And the same Greek word is used in both instances. Mm-hmm. And to make the claim that in this instance, this same exact Greek word means one thing, but in the same exact story being told again later on in the same text, suddenly this word means something different, when the normative usage for akuo is to hear something.
You had earlier said that this word is never used to mean that you heard but did not understand or did not like intelligible, or what would be the verb for that in English?
The normative usage is to hear something.
Right. You said it was never used to mean that in the New Testament, and this is providing examples of when that they're saying that it was intended to mean that.
Perhaps maybe I overstated my case. However, that doesn't help your apologetics in the slightest bit.
How so?
Because, as I've already stated, you are making the claim that we have two instances of the same exact story being told, being Paul's conversion, his Damascus Road experience, the same exact story, with the same details being told, and the same word being used, but the same word is being used in two different ways, even though all the other words surrounding it mean the same exact thing as when they appear in the earlier testimony.
Are these two different words, or are they the same word?
The same word, akuo.
So where's the contradiction?
The contradiction is that one says that they did hear, that they did akuo, and the other one says they do not.
Okay. But we've established that akuo has 3 separate definitions, that in one case it can refer to
only in certain instances, but only in very few instances.
Is the apologetic that the author of Acts is like blatantly equivocating?
It would seem like so.
It seems an incredibly pedantic contradiction, if you don't mind me saying, because to stress on the difference between whether or not, again, someone who's other than the author heard versus heard and did not understand In both cases, it seems like if you're saying that they heard them but did not understand them, and then the other one they're saying they did
But the
not
author,
understand them,
the author,
that's not actually a contradiction.
if the author of Luke wanted to say did not understand, did they have a better way of communicating this in the Greek language?
Well, yeah, but I'm not an English or I guess a Greek teacher grading Acts as a historical record.
Do you
Whether or
think
not they
it would be
have-
confusing to his audience to use the same exact Greek word and say in one instance they did do this verb using this exact Greek verb,
Right.
and then in the later instance say they did not do this exact verb when they had a better verb to describe understanding?
Not particularly. Maybe.
This is-
Again, I don't
I
understand
think-
Greek enough.
I
But
think
to
you're bending.
me,
I think you're bending
when
yourself
someone says like I
backwards.
didn't hear you, that can mean I didn't understand what you said, but in like a different context. I guess
Except
this
for
is the
it's
same context.
yes, the same context, same exact story, same exact everything surrounding the story is exactly the same,
they're
with the
not
exception
actually
that one says
mutually
that one
exclusive.
said no,
You
it
have
is.
to
It's very no, it is explicit.
choose to have them be mutually exclusive.
No. I mean, the only way you can come to this conclusion is if you're already starting with the conclusion that the Book of Acts cannot have contradictions. Anyone who's not dogmatically
I'm not
bound.
saying there's no contradictions. I'm saying there's no material like contradictions that actually matter.
There are.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Is this what is it? Because I had asked Ian earlier if he had a more poignant contradiction than this one.
Okay, wait, before we
You-
move off, wait, so I want to hear the Bible guy's next contradiction,
Yeah, yeah.
but to be clear, just to make like clear to the audience, the bottom line, the apologetic is that the author of Acts using the same word, the same Greek word, and in one instance he's saying this was true, and the other instance he was saying this wasn't true, for the exact same story, that the author is, your apologetic is that the author is just blatantly
Can I
equivocating.
correct? Can
Is
I
that-
adjust that?
Sure, wait, what's the thing that I said that's false first?
So, in my understanding, there are two separate claims that are being made. One is like the hearing of the sound.
Yeah.
The second is the understanding.
Oh, wait,
So that's-
sorry.
that's two
But that's
separate
the
components.
apologetic, is that the author using the same word was equivocating. That's what you're saying, is that the author of Acts equivocated on the term.
Okay. What I'm saying is that to say understood or heard in this context has both the like hearing of the sound and understanding of its meaning. In both cases, he's saying that his audience does not understand what is being said.
Okay, but is the author of Acts equivocating?
I'm sorry, what does equivocating mean?
Okay, sure. It means when you use the same word, except in a different sense of the word.
I suppose you could say it like that, but the degree of separation I would not put big stock in, because if you're using understanding as to like hear and understand, that's like a multi-statement that has multiple. I'm trying to remember my classic logical tradition. It's essentially has A and B, thus C. And I'm saying that if you have a situation where A and B is both false, then C is false. But if you have one where A is true, the hearing of the sound, but B, the understanding of what was said, is false, that would still equal the same result of a false C. Does that make sense?
Wait, so false, false, true. And
No,
then
false, false, false.
False, 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 and then true, false, false.
Correct.
Yeah, you're looking for the and.
statement, you need
Yes,
both.
the and operator is what you're thinking of.
Yes. So my position, or at least my understanding of other people's positions, because again, I don't actually know enough about this to have my own informed one, is that in one case you have one half of the operator false, and in other it could be both, but I actually in both the whether or not you're hearing it physically, I guess would still be false. But in either case, the end result of understanding is false.
Okay. Well, yeah. What's the evidence that would make me think that this is the correct interpretation?
Other than the definitions that we had gone through, I guess
It's the same
whether or not you want to
term.
be charitable.
Oh, well, wait, sorry. So you do need to be disposed towards thinking that it's true to find this compelling?
It's more like you don't need to be looking for a way in which it
If I
has
told you that I have a Mustang and I
earlier.
don't have a Mustang, do you think that's a contradiction?
Well, that's not the case.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Well, that first of all, that is the case. They use the same Greek
Okay.
word, the two verses.
But in both cases, they say they
So
don't.
if I told you that I have a Mustang and that I don't have a Mustang, would that be a contradiction?
That would be a contradiction. That's not the case here.
What if you were being charitable towards me? Would it be a contradiction to say I have a Mustang and I don't have a Mustang?
I've been charitable to the Bible guy when he represented an argument as a 100% this word never means that to
Yeah,
Wait,
I would
wait,
say-
I'm sorry. Wait, he's trying to derail. Don't let him. What question do you think I just asked you?
You're asking me about your Mustang, but I don't see how that has
Would
any
it-
impact on whether or not the Book
let's
of
say you
Acts has
charitably read my
historical truth.
question. The question, like, would it be a contradiction to say I own a Mustang and that I don't own a Mustang?
Mhm.
Would, like, being
Yes.
charitable, would you assume that that's a contradiction?
Does own have multiple meanings in this case?
Nope. It's the same word.
Okay. Same word. Okay. So if I were to ask you, do you own a Mustang, and you have a Mustang in your possession, that would be yes, correct?
Sorry, is it a contradiction reading the statement charitably?
In one case, you might be talking about whether or not you lease or own the car.
Mm-hmm.
There is a charitable way to read that.
Yes.
Whether or not that is true is a separate thing, but it's whether or not you choose to force a contradiction there.
Would it
or
be
one-
a contradiction to say both that I own a Mustang and that I don't own a Mustang is the question.
Those result in materially different results.
So it is a contradiction.
Yes, but
Okay,
in
but what
this
if I'm talking about a
polemic,
car and a horse?
again, I suppose that's different.
Sure.
That is a contradiction. But in this case, the end result is still that they did not understand. The end result is the same.
Wait, sorry.
Whether-
Okay, but to be clear, right? You assume it's a contradiction, even though you know that there's like a sense that it could be a car and a sense that it could be a horse. Like if I
I guess
said,
in that case, you can charitably read that as not a contradiction. If you're referring to a horse
Okay.
of a Mustang, my apologies. I forgot that Mustang also can mean horse.
that's okay. But I mean, that's like basically what's going on in this verse, according to you. That across these two verses, there's one where it uses this word for hearing, and it's using it to mean hearing, and then the exact same word gets used to mean like understanding. So it's saying like they heard it, or they akuo it, and they don't akuo it.
It would be very bad writing on the part of the author of the Acts of the Apostles to use the same exact Greek word, just one in the negative.
I'm not sure if they had strong style guides back then.
Would you not say that the author was extremely literate? The Greek of Acts and Luke is very sophisticated.
I suppose that they were. They're writing. So I guess is your fundamental argument is that it is unclear, and that there was a better word that could have been used, and then the lack of using that better word results in this being a contradiction.
Well,
Yes.
yeah. Oh, well, sorry. No, I think it's even worse.
Okay.
I think that the neutral reading of this is that it's just blatantly a contradiction. Either it's a contradiction or the author is writing in extremely confusing ways. To like confusing in the same way that it would be confusing if I told you I own a Mustang and I don't own a Mustang.
Right. I would say that language is imperfect, and you might be better served looking at the larger context of it. And when you have two accounts that have a way in which they are not contradicting each other, to force that contradiction there is...
Well, it's not really forcing. You're forcing them to not be a contradiction.
Well, by your own... I don't want to put words in your mouth. Would you say that if they are using the same word but in slightly different senses, that you can read this in a way that does not contradict.
The only way
Or
in
is
which
it
is done,
impossible?
the only way in which these two instances of akuo are being used in difference is that one's in the negative and one's in the positive.
Wait, sorry. What's the verse that refers to this word as referring to understanding?
Yeah, let's take a look.
The website that we had talked about earlier. Oh, I got off the page. The website earlier is citing Matthew 13:15, Mark 8:18, 1 Corinthians 14:2.
Matthew, let's go one at a time. Matthew 13:15.
Yes.
For this people's heart is growing gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have closed, lest anyone at any time should see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and should understand with their hearts, and should be converted.
Okay, and then when we go to the word itself,
understand. What's funny is that when it says understand with their hearts, it uses the Greek word syneme.
Oh, yeah. If it means understanding, why isn't it just using the word understanding?
I would say that there's a difference between the cognitive understanding of a statement and the understanding in that you heard the statement correctly.
Okay, so when it says they barely see with their eyes, what does see there mean? Does that also mean, is it just saying like they didn't understand with their ears, understand with their eyes, or understand with their senses?
I don't know why we're continuing to dig into the Greek of different verses to prove whether or not. We can ask the Bible guy.
This is how textual criticism works, bud.
Do you think? Well, again, I'm not a Greek expert, so I have limited value in these questions. But the original point that we were on is whether or not Acts has somewhat of a historical value for the non-supernatural claims that they're making about what the apostles did in and around Greece.
Okay, wait. So just to be clear, do you want to go through and figure out what this word means, or do you not?
I feel like we've spent a lot of time on it, and I feel like this is because now we're talking about eyes, and I'm not trying to master Greek in this conversation.
No, I understand that, but specifically, like the verse is like, you know, they didn't hear with their ears, they didn't see with their eyes, and then what's the last one? Like they didn't understand with their senses, or
with their heart.
With their heart, yeah, they didn't understand with their heart. So if you're saying that what the verse is trying to say is, you know, they didn't understand with their ears, they didn't see with their eyes, and they didn't understand with their heart, does see there also mean understand?
So in this case, akuo is referring to their ears, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? It's the auditory.
I'm asking. Wait, so that just doesn't answer the question.
The heart. Well, that's a different word.
Do you think when it talks about like they didn't see with their eyes, do you think see there is talking about literal sight, or do you think it's like talking about like understanding again?
I would have to go back to the original text and read it within the context to try to find out what the authorial intent is.
Okay. Sure, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's how you read literature in any way.
Okay.
Right. If you and like in this way, I kind of feel like the versing system of the Bible isn't that helpful because people like to pick individual verses out, and that's not how you understand a text.
Yeah, I mean, I just think like the interpretation here, I think either interpretation is fine, but it just obviously follows to me that if it's saying they didn't hear with their ears, they didn't see with their eyes, and they didn't understand with their hearts, if you're interpreting hear there to mean understand, then it becomes they didn't understand with their ears, they didn't see with their eyes, and they didn't understand with their hearts. Probably at that point, like to be consistent, unless Matthew is written by like a 30 IQ Neanderthal, probably the charitable reading is that hearing or that like seeing there means something like, you know, understanding.
So in this case, I do think it is referring to understanding because otherwise this is a very poetic. I don't think he's talking to people who are literally blind, deaf, and dumb of heart.
In this case, though, the context would lead us to know it means understanding because the Greek word for understanding is used, being syneme, and a word which never occurs in either of the instances in the book of Acts. So the context would lend itself for the word Greek word akuo to denote understanding.
The term for here used is akuo, right?
Yep.
But we're not talking about like a intellectual sense of understanding. We're talking about like the literal understanding in the. Let's actually hold on. I want to reference back to the definition that's used in this case. To understand, to perceive the sense of what is said. I do think that that is what they mean here. Because if you're reading the verse completely literally,
Plainly, not literally. The plain meaning of the text is that they did not hear it, the voice.
right? But are you saying, or wait, which verse are you talking about? Are you talking about Acts or Matthew?
Acts 22, verse 9. They did not hear the voice, which is why every single Bible translation out there doesn't translate this as understand. They translate it as hear. Like, are all the scholars just wrong when they understand akuo to mean to hear?
No, sorry. When I say understand, I don't mean to fully comprehend in an intellectual manner. I mean to differentiate what has been said with word. Like, if I heard you, I could repeat back what you said. Not necessarily I understood fully all the implications of what you have said.
Okay.
You're inserting way too much meaning into the word that's not there.
Would you hold the same standard specifically for like the second part of these verses, which is about the light? That when it says in 22:9 that the people with them saw the light but did not hear the voice, as opposed to in 9:7 when it says, they didn't see anyone. Do you think that the seeing there is like literal or metaphorical?
In both cases, they see the light, correct?
No. There's no indication that they see light in Acts 9:7. It says they saw no one.
I don't think that's. In both cases, they don't see anyone. In one case, there's a light, correct?
Is the light Jesus?
I would think in this case, Jesus is appearing in an incarnated form to Paul.
Okay, is that someone?
Yes, but in this case, only Paul saw him. So when in both cases, the men with him did not see anything, or I guess in one case they see a light, but in both cases they're not seeing a person. That's consistent.
Okay, so Paul did see a person though because he saw Jesus and Jesus is a person.
Correct, but this is talking about his companions and what they saw.
Okay, and they saw Jesus and Jesus is a person.
No, in both cases, neither the companions don't see him.
Is the light Jesus?
The light can accompany Jesus, but I believe we can check the surrounding text to see it talks about like what form Paul sees Jesus as.
I got one better for you, okay? All right. Did they all stand up or did they all fall to the ground?
Where is this?
So one would be Acts chapter 9, verse 7, which says in the text about his companions, and the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice but seeing no man. They stood. They were standing.
Mm-hmm.
Acts 23 gives another accounting of Paul's testimony, and in verse 14 it says, and when they were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me and saying in the Aramaic tongue, Saul, Saul, why persecute me? Is it hard for thee to kick against the pricks?
I'm sorry. This verse wasn't in the original comparison, so can you give that verse to me
It's
one more time?
26:14.
Yeah, they had all fallen to the earth.
Yeah, 26. Yeah.
Let me pull up the.
This is a
While
good.
I'm reading this, the Bible guy, do you believe that the apostles were martyred?
No, the only apostles that we can even come close to confirming were martyred was, and not even, we don't even know if they were martyred specifically for being Christian. Some of them is Peter, Paul, and James, and the rest of them is just material from hundreds of years later from sources that even modern day Christians would not even consider to be valid.
Okay, but so 3 out of the 12,
And we don't
then
know
the
what,
rest we don't.
and to say James was martyred is a bit of a leap because we don't know. Like, it never says in Josephus's work that James was killed for being a Christian.
Well, what does it say that he was killed for?
It says he was killed by Ananias for speaking against Ananias in a treasonous way. But it was unjustified, and when the council, because the council was out of town, which is why Ananias was able to do what he did, and when they returned, they reasoned that he had done so unjustly, and he was deposed of his position as high priest and replaced with Jesus ben Damnius.
Okay, but for the sake of argument, which apostle is martyred in the Book of Acts?
In the Book of Acts, are different James.
Okay, and was he one of the ones that you said that we can say that he is martyred?
No, there were 2 Jameses: James the son of Zebedee and James the lesser.
Okay, would you say that James in the Book of Acts was martyred?
No, because Acts is ahistorical.
It contains no history, or it doesn't contain history on that, or...
Yeah, I'm not convinced that it contains any true history. It's fictitious in nature. It doesn't even agree with Paul's own testimony about his own conversion.
Okay.
And it contains what many scholars would consider to be a mythologizing of speaking in tongues in the opening chapters. The way they describe speaking in tongues is different than how Paul described it and how it actually functioned in the ancient world. So most people would consider. I would suggest Richard Purvo's book on the Book of Acts, and he goes into lots of detail as to why he considers it a fiction. Also, the Westminster Institute wrote a book on the authentic Pauline epistles, and they also go into various reasons how it contradicts Paul and why we consider Acts to be fictional narrative.
Another interesting thing in there is that in Acts 9:7 it says that they all stood speechless, and then in Acts 26:14 it says that they all fell down. That was the contradiction we were looking for some reconciliation on. Do you take that to be a contradiction?
For you to fall down, would you start from a standing position?
Sure.
So in one case you can talk about people standing and not mention that they fall, and in another case mention that they fall without mentioning that they're standing.
But they stood hearing the voice, and in the other one they were falling down and hearing the voice.
It's a matter of the order of it. They hear the voice while standing in 9:7, and they hear the voice while fallen in 26:14.
I don't have a strong, but let me get back to my point rather than go into this. Would you say that the events of them physically traveling to Greece are accurate?
To Damascus.
There are events that take place in Greece in Acts as well, right?
Are we talking about Paul and his? Are we still talking about the testimony of Paul, or are we just talking about the early Christians in general?
The early Christian movements in Acts specifically.
I'm satisfied with that. So, acknowledging that there's no reconciliation for this contradiction in the accounts, we can move on to something new.
We were dragged into this because you wouldn't accept any of Acts as having any chance of happening, including the apostles moving.
I don't think I said that. I don't think I said it has no chance of happening. I think I said that I would want the evidence.
No reason to believe. My apologies.
I don't think saying I don't know is the same thing as saying there's a 0% chance that it happened.
You said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you had no reason to believe the events, including just the apostles going around preaching, to be true as described in Acts.
Yeah, I have no reason to think that. If you have some reason to think that, you're welcome to impart it on me.
As described in Acts specifically, so this isn't just generic preaching, but as described in Acts.
In this case, I'm talking about the actual moving and starting communities. Would you dismiss that they went, preached, and started early Christian communities regardless of what the actual message that they're preaching in that community is?
I don't know. That sounds like a historical question. I don't know. Dalton, what do you think?
I'm asking the
Paul certainly did. I don't think we have anything determining that the others necessarily did. We don't know very much about the life of the actual apostles. The only thing we have about them, biographically speaking, is the Gospels and Acts, and those are heavily contested as far as like the information in them.
Right, but I'm only really interested in the human psychology, or whether or not the apostles did go out and spread the message of the Gospels.
Paul certainly did.
Okay. That, I think, was the original premise of what got us into the historicity of Acts. And that was the only actual part for my argument that we needed to prove.
Okay,
But
sure.
Paul disagrees with Acts.
Paul disagrees with Acts?
Yeah, about his testimony. They give contradictory information about the testimony. Like, for example, when Paul first came to believe in Jesus after his revelation, did he have any contact with anyone afterwards?
Is Paul writing Acts? I'm not sure who
Acts gives us information about Paul after his revelation, and Paul gives us information about what happened to him after his revelation. My question is, after Paul's revelation, did Paul come into contact immediately with other Christians or not?
I guess I'd defer to the first-hand account by Paul.
Paul says no. Acts says yes.
Okay.
Did he go to Jerusalem after leaving Damascus, or did he go to Arabia after leaving Damascus?
Did he ever go to Arabia?
After leaving Damascus.
Immediately after leaving Damascus, or just had he ever been to Arabia?
As in after Damascus, before anywhere else, did he go to Jerusalem or to Arabia?
I'm not 100% sure.
Paul says he went to Arabia. The Acts of the Apostles says he went to Jerusalem to meet the apostles.
Again, I'm going to defer to the first-hand account of Paul. But the underlying argument that people did go out to preach this, even though there was real risk of physical oppression.
I mean, we don't know that necessarily.
Specifically, the claim that I'd be interested in is why would I think? Wait, sorry. So the claim that I'm trying to get established here. Wait, sorry. So the claim that I'm trying to get established here is just that one of the people who would have been in a position to see Jesus or like see the resurrection or any of that, that one of these people, that they got martyred proclaiming the resurrection happened. So I don't think that that applies to Paul. I don't grant that Paul saw Jesus. So.
Well, you can have that claim. He certainly was martyred for it, I think.
So was Shanti Kali, but you reject Shanti Kali as having seen the Hindu gods.
Paul just had an inward vision. That's it.
You can say that. In the accounts, I think it's
Paul says that
meant to be interpreted as a physical.
No, Paul says that. Paul says that God chose to reveal his son in me. And then also says that it was a revelation. He says the gospel he received was not from any other human source, but was merely something he received by revelation, and it was inward.
Okay. Where I, again, don't want to get bogged down in these specific contradiction claims, because I'm not arguing that there exists no contradictions. only ones that affect whether or not like the core Gospels are there. I want to talk about the historicity of the new church. And you had said that you don't believe that people went out to spread the message. And so I'm asking you, how did those communities then start? Because they did start, and we know they started.
Is that a question for me? I'd probably just defer to, I mean, whatever the Bible guy says, I'd probably agree with that. It's a historical question.
Yeah, so like how did a church start in Ethiopia? How did churches start in Greece? How did churches start in Rome?
In Ethiopia and Rome, well, Paul's probably responsible for Rome because he writes to them. We have a letter of his to the Roman Church.
Yes.
In regards to Ethiopia, we don't really have anything historical. We have traditions from hundreds of years later, which are certainly legendary in nature. So we don't really know how the church in Ethiopia got its start. Who started it?
But we do know that someone had to go there to start it.
Apparently,
right?
So okay, wait. It's saying the earliest missions were reported there in like the 4th century. So this is like hundreds of years after the fact. Like I don't know if you think that I made the claim that like, you know, nobody spread Christianity. That's not a claim that I've made.
Okay, so when you're arguing about, so I've made the claim that the apostles, after the death of Jesus, in a messianic movement that usually dies out after the death of the Messiah, and like a first century Jew would not understand it being crucified as like a hidden spiritual victory.
There's a messianic movement today that survived past the death of its Messiah, and that would be the Mashiach.
I said first century. I'm not talking about Shabbat.
Okay, well, I mean, it's just not unique. It's not all that. It's not all that. Yeah, it doesn't matter when it happened. It's not really all that interesting.
Wait, why is the when
there's
it
no
happens?
difference between a first century
Whoa,
culture
wait,
and
sorry.
the
What's
same culture in the 19th
relevant
century.
evidentiary fact there? Like, why is that evidentially different? Like, why would this be evidence for the first but not the second?
It's just not a response to my actual claim.
Okay, so do you think that answers my question?
Which is time stated to a first century Judea thing.
That was a yes or no question.
But whether or not a Russian rabbi is the Messiah is not
even an attempt to answer the question. The question
the time
again.
Scale is the time and place
Why
are different.
would it?
And I'm making a cultural
So you're saying that the
argument.
reason why it's
so
evidence in one case but not in the second case is because of different time scales? Is that the argument?
Yes, if I'm making a claim about what happened in the first century Judea, for you to refute that, you would have to provide an example from the first century Judea.
What is it about first century Judea that you think would make it impossible for like a messianic movement to survive the death of its cult leader, especially if hypothetically a few of the members of the surviving cult had bereavement hallucinations and delusions that they thought that their rabbi was still alive, in the same way that Chabad members do today?
I don't think Chabad members believe that he's still alive.
No, they do. There are members of Chabad that believe that the Rebbe is still very much alive, and some who even believe he actually didn't even die.
You have... I'm torn between asking for sources on that and like trying to stay on my original topic. Sorry, I find all this very interesting. But is there other examples of messianic movements in the first century Judea
that
didn't survive or grow after the death of the Messiah figure?
So here's something that I'm curious about. Do you think that there's any evidence for, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, but do you think there's any evidence for the movement? Do you take that to be evidence for the truth of that movement?
I think people don't act randomly out of nothing. I think every action has a cause.
Okay.
And so the question is, what would cause these people to go out and spread this message after the death of the Messiah figure?
I have a
wait. I'm so sorry. What question do you think I asked you, and how do you think that answers it?
I think you wanted me to explain like 19th century rabbinic Messiah movements. You try very hard to take it off of the actual topic.
I think that this is like directly
And argue
related.
the
I'm just
weakness
so what
of
I
some
care
sort.
about is consistency. And
Okay.
that might not be something that you
All right.
care about, but it's something that I'm very focused on. Now, you've put forward an evidentiary standard that
Mhm.
a religion living past the death of the Messiah
In the first
is
century Judea, I
Whoa,
did
sorry.
specify
Whoa,
that.
wait. Why would it be different if it happened at a different time? Like, why if it happened in like first century China, would that be less evidence?
Do you think that the
That
culture
was a
in
yes
first
or no
century
question, to be
Judea
clear.
and no, I cultural arguments are
It
dependent
was
on the
still a
time
yes or
and
no
culture that
question,
they
to be
occur.
clear. Is
Yes,
the
they are different. They're materially different.
Do you think I asked if they were different? What question do you
What
think
did
I
you
asked
ask?
you?
Can you repeat the question that you asked
Yeah,
me?
sure. If it happened in first century China that the Messiah existed and the religion lived on, would that be less evidence than if it happened in like first century Judea?
No.
Okay, if it
Or
happened,
unless it depends on, I'm not familiar with the cultural attitudes of first century China enough to actually answer that question.
okay. I guess like what are the unique cultural attitudes that you think make it like an untenable thing for first century Judea?
There were hundreds, if not thousands, of messianic movements within the first century Judea.
Whoa,
And there's only
that's not true.
okay. How many were there?
There were probably a small handful, like maybe less than 10 at best.
Should we look this up?
Yeah, you go ahead.
We'll defer to Google on this.
I can think of the Egyptian, Judas the Galilean, Jesus of Nazareth, as like prominent examples, but it's not very many.
Yep.
So it seems that Josephus documents between half a dozen and a dozen specific
in first
historical
century?
messiahs.
Remember,
Yes.
because your standard was exclusively first century.
Yes, these would be first century.
Every
not
single one that he
hundreds.
documents is first century?
They start from 6 AD to 70 AD.
Okay.
So yes.
But definitely not hundreds.
I'm not sure if they continued after the destruction of the Second Temple.
They did Bar Kokhba, but that's just one individual.
Well, there's, I mean, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page here. You know, you might notice, oh, sorry, for context, the Wikipedia page is a list of Jewish Messiah claimants. There are claimants going from first century to 21st century.
I don't see what that has to do with the discussion of the first century claimants.
Because your claim, I'll remind you,
I
like
didn't claim
if your
that there
debate
weren't-
strategy relies on you forgetting the things that you've said like 5 seconds ago, I'll simply
No.
remind you of the claim
At
that
no
you made.
point did I
Whoa,
say
let's just
that
calm down there. No
only
need to be getting
Messianic-
upset. The claim that you made, if I'm not mistaken, just now was that you're not
Okay.
sure whether or not the Messiahs continued after the destruction of the temple. So clearly they
That's
did.
not a claim central to the truth of Jesus, though.
Okay, sure, but you did make that claim, and then you pretended like you didn't.
I made a statement.
Yeah,
but
and then you
my
pretended like you
original
didn't.
claim. Can I state my original claim?
I suppose, yeah.
It is that for a messianic movement within the first century Judea, this is the only one that has continued after the death of the messianic figure.
So what? It's perfectly.
The
There's
existence
perfectly.
of second century movements does not disprove that.
There's
That has
perfectly
no bearing.
good. There's perfectly good cultural
It's a non
reasons
sequitur.
why the Messianic movement would continue past the death of its leader, and that's because first century Judeans were polyphasic. They were a polyphasic culture. They did not make a distinction between waking reality and the nature of dreams and visions. Anything that you see in a dream and vision is as real as the real world. So, if a group of Jews following a man as Messiah and he gets violently murdered by the Romans, If one of them has a bereavement hallucination, namely Peter, because he's the first one to whom Jesus, quote, appeared to, if he experiences a bereavement hallucination, his thought's not, I'm hallucinating, because they don't think in those terms. His thoughts is, Jesus has appeared to me after his death. And he has two options. He can either believe that God abandoned Jesus to death and he's just a spirit, in which case Jesus was a failure, or cognitive dissonance can kick in, and he can think God has raised Jesus from the dead and has vindicated him and his message. It perfectly explains why a group like this would survive past the death of its cult leader.
So in this case, you're saying Paul was the first to experience that?
Peter.
Is that
Peter.
Peter. Okay. I thought I heard Paul. My mistake.
When Paul gives us a list of all the people that Jesus appeared to, Peter is the first in the list.
Okay. So how many different people then did...
Well, it depends on what you mean by appear to, because the problem with the Greek word for appear there being ophthe has a semantic range. Paul says that Jesus appeared to him, and yet Paul also says that the revelation of Jesus was inward. It was inside of him, not something external to him. Ophthe refers not only to visual sight, but also to, like, it can also, for example, be a sense of presence. If a group of Christians are sitting around in a room praying and fasting, and they feel a presence with them, and they attribute that to Jesus, that is like sufficient for the condition of Jesus has appeared to us. And it starts with Peter, and then the 12, and then a group of 500 Christians, like in a Pentecostal setting, and then to James, a few other apostles, then last of all to Paul.
So a contagious hallucination.
Not hallucination. The only one who has a hallucination would be the first, being Peter. He's the one who has the bereavement hallucination. The rest would just be what we call collective delusion.
So they would all be deluded into seeing the same thing.
Not seeing. Just all that's required is for them to have, for example, feel a sense of presence.
Did it say in the text that they felt a sense of presence, or that they saw?
That it uses the Greek word ophthe, which is a passive form meaning to appear, but it doesn't just denote visual appearance. It's also used to denote inward perception. Paul uses it of himself in his revelation that he experienced with Jesus, and Paul also says that his revelation of Jesus was one that was inward.
Okay.
There's a really great
understanding. It's all spiritual post appearances.
Yes.
Why is there then an empty tomb?
There is no empty tomb. Paul never says anything about there being an empty tomb. We don't get an empty tomb myth until at least 40 years after Jesus is dead. Typically, Roman soldiers would throw their victims into a mass grave. We have no real good indication of there being a tomb, and there's no tomb that we can point to today where that we can say is the tomb of Jesus.
The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem.
How do you know that's the tomb of Jesus as opposed to the Garden Tomb or the Talpiot Tomb?
Or the one in Japan.
The destruction of the Second Temple and the destruction of Jerusalem, the Romans deliberately built a pagan shrine there, which lasted until the 4th century, which then replaced with a Christian church.
But how do we know that this was the tomb that belonged to Jesus of Nazareth?
Because that's why they built it there.
Wait, the Romans built it there because they knew it was the tomb of Jesus?
Correct.
Why would the Romans want to build a tomb over the tomb of a cult leader of a small Jewish sect? Why would they care?
Well, they destroyed one. At this point, it's not going to be like a tiny Jewish sect, and it would be specifically to disrespect them.
Why would the Romans care about
to
that?
display dominance. Why would they care enough to destroy
Well,
Jerusalem?
wait, sorry. You were, one of the arguments you were making earlier is that there was like tons and tons of messiahs at this time, but only Jesus' legacy survived. Did they do that to any of the other messiahs?
Their legacies wouldn't have survived.
How did the Romans know that?
That there were messianic figures that then they are no longer seen, but they are aware of those other messianic figures that don't have a following?
Why didn't
sorry,
they
are you asking me why
desecrate
they
the?
didn't
Well, I'm
build
asking like, why
temples?
didn't they desecrate the graves of any of the other Messiah claimants?
They weren't relevant.
Oh, what's the
They
argument for
didn't
that?
have a following.
What's the
Jesus wasn't
argument for
relevant
that?
to the Romans.
At this point, Christianity, I think, is already legal when this happens. There's state persecution of Christianity throughout the empire.
Wait, so what specific year are you claiming they erect the pagan shrine?
Let me look it up. It's after the destruction of Jerusalem, but I don't have the exact year off the top of my head.
I'm pretty sure it was Helen, Constantine's mother, who made the claim that this was the site of Jesus' of his burial, and she did so based merely on that's what the locals were saying, based on tradition and nothing more.
Yeah, well, local tradition is the main source in which information gets transmitted, especially in a society that's pre-mass literacy. Like, it would be weird if no one wrote it down today, but that's because writing things down doesn't cost any money for us. But at the time, literacy rate
that
low.
seems like just saying local tradition is not really going to be sufficient for me to think that this is. I mean, there were local traditions in ancient Egypt that certain tombs belonged to the god Osiris for his burial, so it's not all that compelling. You would think that if the empty tomb was such a strong apologetic tool, that Paul would have employed it at least once in all of his letters.
I do know that there are contemporary Jewish refutations saying that the body was stolen.
No, there are not. There's only the Gospels that make the claim that Jews and the actually apostles that make the claim that Jews said the body was stolen. You don't get the body was stolen in any first century Jewish literature.
Let me fact check that real quick.
Wait, who'd you say is the one person who, like the mother of the emperor?
Helen?
Yeah.
Was that her name, or is it Hella? Helen or Hella?
And she has what relationship to, or she's the mother of who?
Constantine, the emperor, the first Christian emperor.
Okay. So this was in like this was in
Fourth
like
century.
the 300s.
So it seems like the earliest written source would be Justin's martyr dialogue with Trypo, mentions that Jewish leaders were spreading the rumor that disciples stole the body from the tomb. Then you can do the Tol Yeshua, which is a medieval source.
Yeah, that's medieval. So you have your earliest source is going to be Justin Martyr, who is this isn't even a Jewish writing. This is a Christian apologist making claims about what a Jewish guy and him were debating about. And this is like in the, I believe, the 2nd century CE.
Mm-hmm.
Well over 100 years after the death of Jesus, and after the Gospels have already been written and the myth of the tomb had already been created.
Yes. These were first century rabbis, essentially, and they would have had a meticulous...
And Trypho wasn't a rabbi. He was just a Jewish guy.
Okay. In the case of the oral tradition, there is strong oral tradition from the region and culture of a meticulous transmission through oral tradition. It's not
really
unheard of for things not to be written down immediately.
Oral tradition's
it's much more rare for things to be written down immediately.
Oral tradition's not all that reliable. I mean, even like the oral tradition that we got for Jesus results in like contradictory claims regarding Jesus, even in the Gospels.
But you only need it to be reliable for 20, 30, 50 years at most.
And Trypho is 100 years after Jesus died.
Right, but for the other early writings.
The Gospels? Like they just no, we don't trust the Gospels because they are more than willing to just make things up about Jesus in order to suit a theological agenda. We have good reason to believe that.
Okay. What is the good reason to believe that?
For example, if we read the Synoptic Gospels, when did they say Jesus was crucified?
During the Passover season.
Yeah, during the Passover day at 9 in the morning, according to the Gospel of Mark. When does the Gospel of John say Jesus was crucified?
Is that going to be the one that's at 12?
Yeah, in the afternoon on the 14th of Nisan, the day before. And why does the Gospel author of John place Jesus' death date and time on the 14th of Nisan in the afternoon? What occurred at that time period and that time of the day?
What occurred?
The death of the slaughtering of the Passover lambs. And the author of John believes that Jesus is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. In other words, he changes the day and time of Jesus' crucifixion in order to make Jesus typologically fulfill some sort of like type from the Old Testament that he thinks that he needs to. And if the gospel author of John is willing to change this fact about Jesus to fit his theological agenda, who knows what else the gospel authors are changing for the same reason?
So the argument is the argument that it's a deliberate malicious change to suit an argument, or that the oral transmission varied the day over the course of 40 years?
As in, the gospel authors wrote their gospels with the purpose of making moral and theological points, and so we're willing to create myths about Jesus in order to teach those theological and moral points. So they're not relating to us with any great confidence what Jesus said and did. The oral tradition it's not sufficient for us to know with great certainty any facts about Jesus, let alone that he was buried in a tomb.
Okay, so you don't believe a tomb existed.
No, I'm convinced that Jesus was most likely thrown into a mass grave and
Do you have
buried.
any source for that?
That Romans buried people in mass graves?
So just a claim about Roman practice?
Yes, like
At the
Roman.
time.
Like, what was the point of crucifixion?
No. I'm asking for a source for Jesus specifically being thrown into a mass grave,
Well,
other than that was typical of Romans at the time.
Well, no, we would need a
Wait.
reason to think that something atypical would have occurred.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't that seems like pretty straightforwardly evidence, right? If
Well, we
what the
have written
Romans
accounts
do is throw people into
stating-
mass graves if they get crucified, then it would seem that we have good reason to think that Jesus was probably thrown into a mass grave.
Wouldn't we hear someone say, hey, the reason there's no body in the tomb is because he was thrown into a mass grave?
It sounds
Well,
like the
Paul-
apologetic didn't exist at that time.
Yeah, exactly. Paul never once cites an empty tomb as evidence for the resurrection. Wouldn't he know about an empty tomb?
Paul was not there at the time. Paul is a later conversion.
But Paul would know about an empty tomb. He knows that Jesus was crucified. He knows he was allegedly betrayed, and he even talks about the Last Supper. So wouldn't he know that Jesus was buried in a tomb?
Whether or not he knew it and whether or not he wrote about it.
Wouldn't that be
But he does mention that Jesus is buried and raised.
buried? Yeah, you
Okay.
can be buried in a mass grave, in a pit. That's how most crucifixion victims occurred. You were buried in a mass grave. So Paul never. Wouldn't that be a very strong apologetic move on Paul's part to go, hey, and I know the guys who knew Jesus, and they can tell you exactly where his grave is, and it's empty. No one's there.
Right. At this time, you would have to have an argument that someone has said that he's actually in a mass grave for that to be the rebuttal.
No, because that's standard Roman practice. So you would go with whatever standard, and then if you want to propose that some alternative is true,
Right, but
you
I'm
would
asking
provide good
you,
reason for that.
was there a hostile source at the time that made that claim, making it a necessity to refute?
So
They wouldn't need to.
So your argument is that Paul did not refute unmade claim preemptively.
Paul's unaware of there being an empty tomb tradition whatsoever, so he doesn't even address it. His whole evidence for the resurrection is only that Jesus appeared to people.
Right. Paul's writing to other churches. His intended audience is the church that he's writing to. That would understand that they have already those understandings. He's not detailing out how to convert or why to convert. He's talking to the converted.
Then why does he detail other things, like, for example, that Jesus first appeared to Peter, and then to the 12? Shouldn't they already know that? Why would he reiterate that and his tomb was empty?
Maybe they had been mistaken or needing corrections, because that's what he's writing in a lot of cases, is corrective letters to other churches.
There's
to
nothing.
standardize
There's nothing. There's no indication in 1 Corinthians 15 that he's like correcting any misunderstanding. He's merely relating what occurred as a fact of it's a creed that he's relating.
Yeah. And what does that creed say?
Only that Jesus appeared to people. Nothing about an empty tomb.
Specifically, what's the creed?
1 Corinthians 15, that Jesus was buried and raised, and that he appeared to Peter, the 12, 500, to James, and then to him.
And is he inventing this creed in the letter, or?
No, he's probably relating an earlier creed, but again, he says nothing about there being an empty tomb.
Right. So this.
He even says to his audience, by the way, the 500
where
brethren.
does that creed come from?
It's existed in Christianity.
Do we have a name for this creed?
I'm pretty sure that theologians probably have a designation for it, but I would just call it the Creed of 1 Corinthians 15. I haven't heard a formal name for it, but I'm pretty sure someone has named it.
I'm looking for that right now.
1 Corinthians 13?
15.
15.
It starts in verse 3. And Paul tells us that this is something that he's received. It's a creed. It says, "For I delivered unto you, first of all, that which I also received." And then he goes on to describe that Jesus was buried, resurrected, and that he appeared to people. And that's his evidence for the resurrection, is the appearances. He never once cites an empty tomb for evidence, because as far as we can tell, it's like the virgin birth. Paul's just unaware of any such tradition, probably because it just hadn't yet been developed. By the way, I'm not saying something that's super fringe. There are other scholars that would agree with me on this, like Bart Ehrman also denies that Jesus was buried in a tomb.
So he says in accordance with the scriptures, correct?
Yeah, he's referencing the Hebrew Bible. He believes that Jesus' actions fulfilled the scriptures.
Mm-hmm. So you'd be referencing like Hosea 6:2.
I mean, there's any number of scriptures that he could have been referencing, because the Christian community was very good at misquoting the Old Testament to serve their agenda of making Jesus look like the Messiah.
So what's the point of doing that if they don't believe that he's the Messiah?
They do think he's the Messiah. What are you on about?
Okay. In my historical argument for the historical event, I guess in your case it's one hallucination and then mass delusion for the belief?
Yep. That's all that's required for a early cult of Christians to begin.
Is there strong precedence for that kind of mass delusion to occur?
Oh yeah, Miracle of Fatima. We actually have far more than just the 500. We have thousands of people who allegedly saw the sun dancing in the sky, and confirming Catholic miracles. And there's the dancing plague that occurred at one point, which was another mass delusion.
And how do you know
Waco?
that these are delusions?
Yeah, because the sun didn't dance in the sky. We
How
know
do you
that,
know that it didn't?
because it wasn't reported anywhere else in the world. Surely everyone else would have noticed the sun dancing in the sky, since the sun is a giant, it's in space, 93 million miles away. We would all be able to see. It didn't occur, though. And there were also people present at Fatima who said they didn't see anything.
I would love to continue to talk about this, but I do have to drop.
Okay.
But
Well,
it's been lovely.
yeah, I appreciate the conversation. Thanks so much for coming on up, Mike.
No worries, and have a great rest of your day. And was it Dolan?
Dalton.
Dalton. Have a wonderful rest of the day too. Thank you so much for your time.
Yep. Have
You
a great
too.
day. Hey,
Great.
Dalton,
Now
thanks so much. You should send me your I don't know, do you have like a Venmo or like a Cash App? I'd be happy to buy the Bible, what was it, the lexicon that you were talking about I'd be happy to get that for you.
The BDAG?
Yeah.
Oh hell! Well, sure. I'll message you on Discord.
Yeah, please. But thanks so much for coming on up. I super appreciate it. I couldn't have done this without you.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, bud. If you ever need me, just reach out.
Yep,
and let
absolutely.
you get back to running your own show.
Yeah,
and stop taking over.
No, that's totally fine. You're also welcome back here anytime you want. I'd be happy to bring you up at like future dates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I'll see you around, bud.
Yep. Have a good one. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, doing all that good stuff. Let's read some supers. GM Nick, thanks so much for the super chat. Sorry, I forgot about TikTok TOS. I'll keep my super chats clean. That's okay. You don't need to keep them like too clean, but no, it's like personal reasons. Andrew Coates, thanks so much for the $50 super chat. Holy shit, $50? That's ballers, my dude. 50 bucks, 50 buckaroos. That's incredible. Let's get a big W for Andrew. That kicks ass. Thanks, Andrew. I really couldn't do this without support like yours, and so consistent too. I really appreciate that, Andrew. Like seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Suleiman, thanks so much for the super chat. Got to get Monkey Boy up sometime. Kid is talented. I agree. Monkey Boy is very talented. I think that we have like slightly different debate styles though, where I think Monkey Boy is like a very like methodical debate style, where he's not willing to grant even claims that I think are like pretty obvious, and he wants like a justification for them, which is like valid, right? But man, I think I like conversations to be a bit quicker. So I think I'd consider it. Inconspicuous typos. Thanks so much for the super chat. A god that does not exist yet created a universe is greater than a god that does exist and created the universe. So God does not exist. QED, ontological argument owned. That is funny. I like that. Relax with Russell. Thanks so much for the super chat. Caller may have a point about cults surviving the death of their messiah. The problem is that the cult has unironically been denying his death for 2,000 years, saying he is resurrected and will be back. True. That's a good point. Anyway. What the flip? Oh, okay. I see. Other than that, it's been great. This has been a great stream. I know Justin is live right now. Whoa, Genji, thanks so much for the $100 super chat. What the fuck? Whoa. $100 super chat? Thanks. You need me to read more? Yeah. Oh, fuck. Where is it? $100 super chat. Let's help Dalton. Absolutely. Yep. I did a little bit of looking at like the lexicon that he was talking about. I see it's like $180, but people in the comments are saying that it's more. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the books that I buy are like similar price range, so you know, I'm used to it. But yeah, I'll DM it to him. We'll get it over to him. Get a grip. Thanks so much for the super chat. Acts 9 Acts 9:7 and Acts 22:6 are accounts from two different people. Acts is written by the Apostle Luke. 9:7 is an account from Luke, and 22:6 is a quote from Paul. Most eyewitness accounts aren't one for one. Is that true? Is it a quote from Paul? I thought both were quotes from Paul. I don't know. I'd have to look at it. But anyway, Bayar Globs, thanks so much for the $20 super chat. Would you dismiss the work of Eden and Lorraine Warren? Let's see. Yep. Easy dismissal. Yep. Okay. Paranormal investigators and authors associated with prominent cases of alleged hauntings. Edward was a self-taught and self-professed demonologist, author, lecturer, and artist. Yeah. I think like the killer question is like, why does this only happen to people who believe in this stuff? Why aren't there any accounts of people who were atheists getting possessed by demons? Fucking easy dismissal, yeah. Bayar, thanks so much for the super chat. Do you believe there is an earthly or scientific explanation for UFOs? Yeah, it could just be, I don't know, it could just be like planes. Would you consider aliens and spiritual entities to be the same thing if they're both real? No, aliens would presumably be a natural thing. They'd be like extraterrestrial life forms. And I think life is like a natural process, so I don't see any reason. Whoa, thanks so much for the $20 super chat. If God is real, then wouldn't all other entities exist as well? And the belief that the ancient Egyptians had a connection to otherworldly or some other dimensional beings would probably be real as well. I don't know if that follows. Presumably only the beings that the religion claims are real would be real. Bear Globes, thanks so much for another. You're kicking ass. Thank you so much. Let's get a big W for Bear Globes. I appreciate the questions. There's no reason why your magical man should exist and these other entities and forces should not. Maybe. I don't know. It's a question of like the arguments and evidence for them. The Rabbit Squirrel Sage, thanks so much for the $2 super chat. Car guys got to know, what kind of car do you have? I'm respectfully, I'm not disclosing that information to you. Why would it be acceptable to dismiss the old gods in favor of a new singular god created by man? I probably wouldn't. Probably what I'd want to say is that they're all false. Molly, let me know. Okay, that's it. All right. Love all of you. It's been great. Go give Justin a raid. Justin deserves a raid. He deserves a raid. Go raid Justin. He deserves it. All right. Oh, wait, Molly's here. It's time for my medications. It's gonna start beeping soon. Okay. Well, I love all of you. Have a good day. Beep, 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 beep. Beep, beep, beep.